Welcome to Destiny Massive Breakdowns, episode 288. I'm Lego Flash.
And I'm Ill Physics, and we're here with another deep dive into Destiny 2.
And this week on the show, we're covering a ton of weapons from the Dawning, Iron Banner, and all the new ritual weapons this season. We were going to just do maybe the world drop weapons or something like that, and then we really looked at how many there were and what we had going on, and we realized that, you know, with this 2-week schedule, we've got the Dawning that's coming to an end, but if we record right now, you will get all the information on the Dawning weapons. Iron Banner's coming up, and we've got 2 new weapons there, and of course, we want to cover some of the other weapons this season, so I'm really pumped to get into it all. I think it's going to be great. But first, before we get into all that, we'd like to thank the following Guardians for their generous support: Matters, Mossy, Stevie Danger, Ethereal Minds, and Brazen. Thank you for your pledges, and thanks to all ongoing patrons for keeping the lights on. And we also want to say a special thanks to ongoing sponsor Guardians who give on a massive level every month. Seriously, I'll keep the show going. And that is Impetus, Binary Wolf, Black Hammer Tech, Bryce Aroni, Askian Monk, Deacon, Starscream S13, Moonlight, The Shazzle, This Moment, and Zen SoCal.
Yes, and if you'd like to support the show, please visit DestinyMassiveBreakdowns.com and click on the link to Patreon. You'll get access to members-only channel in the Discord, behind-the-scenes info, and input on the future of the show, plus access to our legendary annual merch drop. Last but not least, big shout out to, I believe it is Great Britain. Great Britain has left us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Great Britain says, congratulations to Lego and Tony on their first episode as a duo. Yo, thank you so much. Great dynamic and insights presented by both of you. Looking forward to the future episodes. Still the best Destiny podcast in town. Woo-wee!
What?
Okay. Yo, big ups to Great Britain. Thank you so much for the kind words. We work hard out here and will continue to do so. Finally, thanks to the Destiny Massive Breakdowns editors, Nettie Smith and Mr. Sutton, for their hard work on this show and Podcast vs. Enemies, the Destiny PvE show that explains it all. If you think we sound great, know that it's because of them.
Yeah, for real. Thank you all so much. The audio editors here. There was something last time that Nettie cleaned up for me. So y'all, and I got some comments in the Destiny Massive Breakdowns Discord, actually. It was like, everything sounded so good. It was like, y'all been doing this forever. And I was like, well, thank you, Nettie. Killed
yes,
it.
100%. Seriously, Nettie and Sutton, 100.
But for real, thank everyone in the Discord who's been giving us all those comments on Twitter. We've just heard from so many of you that y'all love the show. Last episode, and with me and Tony coming on, we're just so happy to be here. I know I said it last week, but it's big shoes to fill. And for y'all, so many of you, to come out and say you're so excited about the future of the podcast means a whole lot to us.
Truly. Yeah, I agree. And just a side note as well, I'm pretty sure it's ethereal.
Oh no.
I was gonna poke at you. I was like, pretty sure it was ethereal.
Oh yeah, you're right.
I only mentioned it as well because I swear it's one of my favorite words. So
that's terrible
yeah.
Because last time someone else was like, it was Sylv. It was like, oh, you said my name right, and I was like, wait, and so I had to get something wrong. Had to do something wrong. But love it. Of course, we appreciate all of you for real. Thank you, and it's important that we get your names right because we do appreciate you that much.
Yeah, most definitely.
I know we spent a lot of time in the last episode going over the basics of like where Crucible is, but like we said, this week we have a lot of weapons to go over. So we're kind of just going to dive straight in because me and Tony, whenever we get talking, like even pre-show, we're talking about something, we're like, oh yeah, that's cool. What about this? What if we did it this way? So we're like, oh, we gotta just start recording, man. This is good stuff.
It's true. It's the nitty gritty this week for sure. It's the nitty gritty this week.
It's good stuff, though, so I'm excited to get into it. So we'll start with the Dawning weapons first, then we'll jump into Iron Banner and some of the ritual weapons that everybody has access to, even if you didn't play any of the events. But for this event going on right now that you should have a few days left to turn stuff in by the time this podcast drops, we've got 5 weapons here. So first up, we got Stay Frosty, the brand new pulse rifle, the new one for this year that we've never seen before. And it's pretty exciting because it's a lightweight weapon, which are my personal brand of favorite weapons, giving you that boost to mobility that not really anything else in the game can, unless you're running an exotic. So, and it's got quite a few perks here as well, which I am very pumped to jump into. I'll just go ahead and read off some of the stats real quick before we jump into the perks. It's a lightweight weapon, so that's a 450 RPM. And it's got I guess I should hit up before I was going to just jump into the stats, but I was like, wait. Let me hit you with some TTK numbers here so we know what we're working with. So lightweight weapons, the 450 RPM, you're doing 26 to the head and 16 to the body. And that's a 0.87 TTK, so your optimal time to kill, 0.87 seconds, with 6 crits and 2 bodies. And so we can do some stuff to mess around with that in a little bit. But first, I just want to jump into the stats. So the stats for this thing, the Stay Frosty Dawning Pulse Rifle, it's got a range of 38, stability 52, handling 67, reload speed of 56, an aim assist of 70, recoil direction 55, mag size 31, inner effectiveness 20, and zoom 18. And so, yeah, to me, right off the bat, I'm like, it looks on paper very samey to me as the other lightweights that we currently have. Tony, I'm curious your first impressions when you look at everything.
Yeah, it was the same for me as well. Looks very similar on paper to the Ogma PR6, which is a world drop, I believe. Is that correct? A solar lightweight pulse rifle that we got like a season or two ago. What I found kind of interesting, the largest difference between those two is actually the zoom. It's 18 zoom on Stay Frosty, 19 zoom on pulse rifles. At this point, we kind of all realize how big of a factor zoom is. I don't really know how big of a deal, one zoom between these two are, but nonetheless,
right.
Of all the differences, the small, minute differences between the two, that's the one that stuck out the most. Otherwise, very, very similar. Very, very similar to the Ogma PR6. So the similarity between those two weapons is the thing that stuck out, first and foremost to me. Otherwise, Stay Frosty, it's just, first of all, the base skin looks really cool. I mean, fashion. I mean, we've talked about it many a time, people. Fashion is so important. Your KD is going to go up at least by 0.5, at least 0.5 if you've got your fashion on point. So Stay Frosty is a very, very sexy looking weapon. I thought they did a great job with it. And yeah, I mean, otherwise, the things that stood out is just the great perk package, which, I'm sure I could toss it back to you for a second because we talked about that a little bit.
Yeah, the thing that really I think is interesting to a lot of people right now is Headseeker, because it just got that new rework where now it's lasting for a few seconds after a body shot and changes the multiplier of the precision headshots. But as I was talking with Tony beforehand, I was like, man, I don't know if there's a time where I would really push to use Headseeker unless it really changed the forgiveness of the gun in a drastic way. But I don't feel like it does here to a degree that I'm like, okay, I have more leeway now with my body shots. When I think of that, I think of more of the precision weapons that are pulse rifles that require like all headshots, like those high impact pulse rifles, the ones that really like you have to hit all your headshots for this to work. Whereas this one, I've seen it both ways, feedback wise. People saying, okay, I like headshot or Headseeker on this, but I'm not sure if it's just a placebo and it's like actually doing anything. And when I add up the numbers, I don't see that it really is doing enough where it is making that much of a difference. It's like you're hitting the one body crit, and then you've got to hit 2 more crits. And no matter what, you're going to have to take that extra burst to get the kill, no matter what, like whether you have Headseeker or not. Yeah. So you're never going to get the 2-shot with it. And so what are you really pushing for this thing for? So that's the first perk that sticks out to me here. Yeah.
And then, like, are we really going for Headseeker over something like Desperado?
I know.
Over something like Golden Tricorn. I know Golden Tricorn is your baby, of course.
Yes.
Even Headseeker is super cool. Especially if you can get it to synergize with your stasis build as well. But I mean, Headseeker definitely puts a lot of people off. I know it puts me off whenever, either myself or a teammate ends up getting, transitioned into ice upon
Oh, you mean
upon
Headstone?
Death.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry,
you were saying Headseeker, and I was like, wait,
Headseeker.
what?
Oh my God. Thank you. Headstone, people, Headstone, my bad. I'm over here in a blankie, I swear. Everybody's cold, man. It's got that cold snap coming through the States right now. But yes, Headstone, a really interesting option as well. So, I mean, are we really, picking Headseeker, over those when Headseeker is only but doing so much? Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that one. So, interesting picks, and of course, interesting picks in the first column of the two like major columns on the end, right? You've got the Killing Wind, which is just a kind of a just a community favorite just in general, and ends up synergizing with damage perks in particular. So for example, you get a kill, then you end up getting the benefits of Killing Wind, the plus 20 range, plus 50 mobility, the plus 40 handling, et cetera, and then you end up getting something like Golden Tricorn to activate as well, which is kind of like, is it a better Rampage?
So it's a better Rampage, but on this weapon in particular, because I feel like reload speed's pretty good on pulse rifles, and so I think I might be leaning towards Kill Clip on this one, because Kill Clip will bring it to that 2-burst kill, even at 10 Resil, on a lightweight. And so it requires 100% headshots at that range, so that means that there's no way, Golden Tricorn's 15% is going to get there. Oh, hold up. Now I got to check. Now I'm like, wait, it's Kill Clip on the spreadsheet has still not been updated. So I am wrong. It will not do that. Dang it. Now I'll mess up.
Yeah, no, it actually surprised me for a second. I was just like, oh man, like this thing can... Okay, I won't even repeat it because I don't want it.
Yeah, it's not in your heads. You'll never heard anything.
Never heard it.
No,
never heard
okay.
It.
So it's not as good, but I do still think Kill Clip on this thing is going to have some potential, because I'm gonna have to add it back up now because I'm like, wait. But the thing about Golden Tricorn, you were saying it's like a better Rampage. So it is the better Rampage because you get that 15% damage buff, and it lasts for 7 seconds, and you just get it automatically. But unfortunately, it does just end up making the gun just more lenient, which is kind of what Headseeker did too. It's gonna make it more lenient than Headseeker. Like, it's more obvious. Like, okay, I only need to hit 6 crits, 1 body, but you're still having to fire that extra burst, and so it's still like a 0.8 second time to kill, which usually when you get a damage perk, you want it to be more of a punch than that. So
most definitely. It's the same thing that I tell people about rough. Like Kill Clip on hand cannons. People are just like, Tony, are you telling me you don't like Kill Clip on hand cannons? I'm like, if it doesn't reduce my TTK, if I'm not able to 2-tap with it, basically, then Kill Clip is I'm already going for precision hits. If it's making it more forgiving, then cool. But if you're a specialist in that weapon, and you've got a weapon that's outfitted for good stability, et cetera, to ensure that you're hitting the shots that you're supposed to be hitting, then making my weapon more forgiving is fantastic. But I'll take something that actually reduces my TTK.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So while I was wrong about Kill Clip doing the 2-burst. All the time, because now, as we said, it's only 20%. You can 2-burst up to 3 Resil, which is not... Oh, wait, no, you can keep going. You can 2-burst up to 4 Resilience. So at 5 Resil is the breaking point for that new 20% Kill Clip. Sorry about that, y'all. Just spreadsheet updates going on in the background. Don't worry about it. But speaking of, I did want to touch on that real quick, because we are slowly updating the spreadsheet. Not with the perk data, hasn't been updated as you see, but I have added all the weapons that we talk about today. You can check them all out, all the stats compared to all the other weapons in the sheet. It has been updated, so we're getting that rolled out as we talk.
Awesome.
But I as far as this weapon goes, there's not a bunch of damage stuff that really punches it. Desperado, you mentioned that a second ago. That does take it to a slightly faster TTK, even at higher resiliences. You're hitting that. You're still having to fire, 3 different bursts, but it's a 0.73 TTK. Which is pretty good even against 10 Resil, having Desperado procced. So that's pretty good.
Yeah. And then like a couple things, that may be obvious, but I just wanted to mention Golden Tricorn obviously can get stacks. So there's a benefit to that. You end up getting how many stacks total?
Oh, well, so that's the thing with Golden Tricorn is it's very particular with different weapons. There's only 2 levels to it, so there's not really stacks.
Okay.
You got to think of it more like levels. So you got level 1, which is the rampage, and you got level 2 that's like you have to proc with an ability, and it's 50% extra damage.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
The problem is stasis weapons are terrible for proccing Golden Tricorn ×2 because the only way to get the stasis kill is with a shatter. Or with the, I guess, Titan melee or the shurikens are the only other thing. So a hunter could do it, but it's just difficult because it's such little damage. But the problem is that, like, if you freeze someone and then punch them, that's a normal melee. It doesn't count as your stasis element. And so warlocks, there's, like, no way for a warlock to proc this.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a difficult on it. Whenever I see Golden Tricorn on a stasis weapon, I'm like, maybe in PvE, but it's not going to happen in PvP. It's just really difficult. Even someone who has tried a lot to make it work.
Yeah, I'm glad you made that distinction too, like to levels, because I didn't realize that about Golden Tricorn. I thought I really did think it was like a better like rampage where so if folks don't know, final blows with this weapon grant bonus damage, and while this buff is active, grenade or melee kills of the same damage type greatly increase its damage and duration. So hold on, level 1 has to be active for level 2 to be Okay, that's a little bit crazier than I thought.
It's crazy, yeah. It's not crazy if you're running something where you use an ability like that a lot. Like if you're on Solar Hunter and you've got a solar weapon with Golden Tricorn, then it's pretty easy. Like you get a kill and then it's like, oh, well, I'm running Calibans. Just let me chunk, trip mine, and proximity knife this direction. And then it just has to get a kill within 7 seconds. 7 seconds is a long time in the Crucible. And so then you get 10 seconds of that 50% and you're just like on a rampage. So it's bad on something like this, but it can be good in another area where or you're running a Solar Titan and you can just shoulder charge someone. That's not that difficult these days. So.
Especially with Peregrines. You're absolutely right.
Yep.
True. Okay. All right. Well, there was a lot more depth to Golden Tricorn. I definitely learned some things on that one. Okay. All right.
And then I want to point out under over. It doesn't feel. So I got on a kick on this, and we didn't really touch on what we hit on last episode, but we talked about Exalted Truth, the hand cannon that came out, and I didn't really think much about under over. But first of all, that hand cannon rocks. I freaking love it. It's been so long since I loved a hand cannon and just couldn't stop using it, and I can't stop. Every time I game, I just want to be using that hand cannon, so that feels great. But I got under over on it, and I didn't think I would care about it, but fighting so many Titans in Trials, there were just times where they would barely peek in, get a sliver of overshield, and then I'd hit them for that way stronger headshot, like 87, something like that. I'm not covering that tonight, so don't have the math off the top of my head, but it's a significant amount more damage, and it's just easier to clean up a Tinrazil Titan when there's so much extra stuff going on, like healing, and sometimes it isn't all about the strict TTK of what that Guardian Resilience is, that 240 resilience level that Titan has. It matters if they're peeking in and out. Did their buddy throw a healing nade on them? There's all this extra stuff. So I really have enjoyed that perk. I'm not saying it's great here, but if you get one, I wouldn't necessarily trash it. That's what I'm saying.
I think that's fair. And, I saw your post when you were talking about it on Twitter, and I think that's totally fair. Even coming from, a more like competitive environment, I think that's totally fair. And you said it right. There's so many things kind of going on and, it depends on, what else you have. I mean, a lot of times we just want a hand cannon that's a consistent shooter. Right. And then unless it's something that's kind of crazy on the end as far as a perk that we have to have, then just something that's useful, especially in this meta is worthwhile, because a lot of times I'm just looking for the stats on the front end, the barrel, et cetera, the masterwork. I'm looking for those things first and foremost, because if those aren't good for me, if those aren't balanced to the point where it gives me a nice consistent hand cannon with good range, good stability, good handling, then it's not as much like I could really care less about what's on the end. It doesn't matter whether it's the best perks or not, especially in this meta where hand cannons just aren't in the best place with regards to the meta. You really do need great stats on a hand cannon for it to be a consistent shooter against some of these pulse rifles, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, just coming back around to your tweet and talking about, under, over, and talking about, what was it, repulsor brace, because that was the combination. I could see that popping. I could see that popping in this meta, even in the most competitive environment. So yeah, I like that. And also I want to say as well, you brought me back around to the fact that we spoke, and I was last episode, and I was talking about how excited I was for the combination of Killing Wind and Encore.
Yeah.
You see, and I said it, I don't feel like there's a lot of weapons that have those two in separate categories. And you see on this weapon, for example, you have them in the same category. So you can't get that combination, can't get that synergy on this one. And a lot of people have come back and told me that they really enjoy that combination on the Exalted Truth. And I was happy about that, because I definitely picked up one myself, and I enjoy it as well. And just Encore as a reworked perk. And that's what kind of led me down this rabbit hole, just to speak about this right now. Just seeing Encore available on the Stay Frosty is just really cool as well. They did a great job with that rework, and I hope people continue to find benefit in this particular perk.
Yeah, for sure. And then even like outside of the perk pool that Stay Frosty has here, and first I just want to rewind one more second just to say, you're absolutely right on the hand cannon stuff. I can't get over it, because you just said it almost doesn't matter what the perks are if you set it up the stats right, and that's exactly what happened with my roll. I got that repulsor brace under over with my Exalted Truth, and my range is like that ladder, just range and then more stability, and then handling all the way. I had to put a handling adept mod on it to get it there, but it feels so amazing. Good. It feels incredible. So it doesn't even matter what the perks are. It just feels great.
And that's what a hand cannon is, man. Double down on what the archetype is all about. And it's all about that movement. It's all about that versatility, being able to shoot it in a bunch of different environments, and for it just be a consistent, precision shooter. And just getting those step stairs, those stat stairs, I guess is what we called it.
Stairs,
so
the
stat
I like
stairs.
It.
Yep.
Yeah, and then back to this thing. I agree with you. Encore, Killing Wind. It's cool to see those here. I feel like there's a lot of good stuff here. I feel like the one that is standing out in that last column is definitely Desperado or Headstone. All the others are just like, maybe we can get that to work. But yeah, you touched on a lot of the aim assist ones: Moving Target, Tunnel Vision, Killing Wind. All those ones are gonna push connecting your shots. The other thing that really sticks out to me on this gun as like a closing thing for myself is the recoil direction being only 55. That's pretty low for a pulse rifle. Not like low in comparison to its siblings in that category, but more so low for just a pulse in general, because you got that bounce that happens with the gun, and you really want that spread to be tight. And so I think that because of that, arrowhead break is like the must. Like for me as a controller player, like I need arrowhead break on a pulse rifle. Maybe there are others that feel differently about it, because I know on fusion rifles I play this back and forth where I don't really need the recoil direction to be that high if I can stick the shot, and I've used them long enough where I don't have to have that recoil direction. But for me as a pulse rifle player, I need that recoil direction, so I would be going with arrowhead break if I could choose something out of that column.
That's definitely fair, and I'd rock with that as well. I mean, whenever I'm rocking with a lightweight pulse rifle as well, you see that just basic, without clicking on anything on D2 Gunsmith, right? Like it has the stat stairs. It has like 38 range, 52 stability, 67 handling. So this thing operates in kind of a tier of like you kind of just running and gunning with it, right? Running and gunning. I mean, obviously it's a lightweight, so it kind of leans into that mobility as well. So arrowhead break just makes it even more consistent. It gives it handling as well in turn. And then you just use the rest of the perks to kind of like fill it out. I'll mention as well that I do feel like the faster the weapon fires, that high cal ends up kind of playing into things a little bit more as well. Just that burst damage like per second.
Right.
So high cal is also something you might want to kind of keep in mind for this thing, whereas on some other archetypes or some other subfamilies, I wouldn't necessarily be as concerned about it. But absolutely right. Considering the fact that arrowhead break takes it from 55 recoil direction all the way up to 85, then on top of that, Omelon fluid dynamics, kind of giving you that extra stability on the top half of the mag as well. Some considerations for a pulse rifle and trying to just keep it as consistent as possible and getting those bursts.
for sure. I think that's good. Do you have anything else you want to say about this pulse rifle? I think I'm going to move on. I feel like that covers it pretty well.
No, I think that covers it pretty well. I mean, we definitely mentioned kind of the offhand strike.
yeah. I guess we can touch on that real quick.
We had a laugh about it. It's going to come up. It's going to come up. We had a laugh about this like at the beginning of the show because we both had the same, first reaction with this perk. I was reading it and like Lego was just like, yo, is there any other perk you think you should mention? I'm just like, well, you didn't mention that offhand strike. What do you mean? Like, final blows grant additional weapon range, stability, and accuracy while firing from the O. That's why Lego. He didn't forget it. It's firing from the hip for a short duration. Yeah, I'm good on that. On that.
I think everyone in this community probably made that call. They were like, "Oh, what is this? What is? Oh, that's what it is. Okay, I see. From the hip." Yeah,
I think we'll pass on that.
Yeah, because it's going to come up in other guns, so I'm glad you brought it up now. And so if you're looking at, D2 Gunsmith and you start seeing light.gg, you see that perk, you're like, oh, what is it? You're like, yeah, from the hip. Just think about that for a second. Let it sit,
Yeah, I mean, offense strike could be kind of nice on maybe a shotgun.
A shotgun, yeah.
Especially if you're like a hunter, a lot of times, hunters oftentimes fire from the hip a little bit more frequently than the other two just because we're jumping in the air doing some crazy stuff. But that could play for sure.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
You got me thinking about something with the fusion rifle that's in here that because I'm mad about that perk being on the fusion rifle, but because of something they took away, which I'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
I'm super curious. Man, it would have been good. I'm extra mad about it. Okay. I'll get into it in a second. But next up we got Cold Front, the SMG. Okay. So this is a 600 RPM SMG. 600 RPM SMGs. Their precision, they've got the 24 crit and 17 body for a 0.8 second TTK. That's at 10 Resil. I know, I just want to say up front, I know I keep saying everything at 10 Resil, and the standard is sometimes 7, but I look at everything at 10 Resil now because that feels like that's all I'm fighting in the Crucible is Titans with their overshield. I'm tempted to even put the PvP, bonus HP of the overshield on here. I see it so much. I won't do it. But that's why I do everything at 10 Resil, because that's how often you see it. So I'm just being real with everyone. That's all I'm doing.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
But 0.8 second TTK. So yeah, that's with 7 crit and 2 body. And I want to bring it up right now before I forget, because it's really interesting. We've got this new perk that is very complicated, to the point that Kit, when he was doing the podcast, talked about Adagio. He's like, guys, it's complicated. That's what Cascade Point reminds me a lot of, is the way Adagio works in its calculation. And I got to give a shout out here real quick to Rock DC and Tom Cruise Missile in the Destiny Massive Breakdowns Discord. They had a hole in the Destiny side. I'm sure lots of people working on this, but the Rock DC in particular did a huge Reddit post about
explaining
everything. And he did it really, really well. So shout out to him for helping me understand it as well.
Yep, same.
But it's easy to think of this perk as... I'm getting ahead of myself. I haven't even said the stats of the gun yet, but I wanted to bring it up because I didn't want to forget. We're going to see Cascade Point on a lot of guns here, and this is probably one of the most interesting ones because it gives a 0.7 times scalar, not on the rate of fire, because if you times it together, it's not going to work out right. It gives it on the breathing room between each bullet that is in the gun. And so instead of timesing, like the multiplying it by the RPM, you got to divide it, is the way the math all works out. I'm not going to explain it as well as they did in the Reddit post. I'm just going to say, simplified, what you do is you take the RPM of something and you divide it by these scalars. And so for machine guns and submachine guns, they get they get a benefit of 0.7, and then for sniper rifles, shotguns, and auto rifles, it's 0.6 scalar. Mm-hmm. So you just divide it by that and get what the actual RPM is. Now, okay, before I jump into the perks, I need to rewind myself real quick. I got too excited about it, and I got to talk about the stats of this submachine gun because, and there's a reason to talk about these stats. I know this is a weapon that we've already had in the game, but there was one stat that changed about this, and that is the zoom got a +1 to the zoom from its old version, which is interesting because I feel like, you don't see them change stuff like that much, and when you do, it's usually the other way around. They're like, that had too much zoom, let's bring it back. But they got a +1 now, so it's 14 zoom. It used to be 13.
Yeah, and I'll definitely mention, and sorry to break you for a second,
go for it.
Definitely mention on SMGs in particular. I don't know if there's a weapon in PvP that's affected more by zoom than SMGs. You know, so the fact that they gave it that additional zoom point is kind of substantial, especially considering you can get rangefinder on this. That gives it an additional 10% zoom on top of that. So just something to kind of like mention. I can't remember what the actual like highest zoom SMG is right now. It's probably something whatever's on Antiope. We could probably check that for a second. But nonetheless, 14 is definitely nothing to balk at, especially when you have rangefinder in addition to that.
Yeah, I think you're right on NTAP. That 17 zoom, that's pretty up there. Yeah, so chunky. For Cold Front, for the range, I think the important thing here is the stability. But the range is 40, which is pretty up there. But the stability is 7, which isn't completely out there. Extraordinary rendition from the Battlegrounds a while ago. That one was 8. So this archetype just gets low stability. Handling 53, reload speed 19, aim assist 29. That's the lowest, I think, in the entire aggressive frame archetype, so that's not great. Recoil direction of 92 though, which is higher. Mag size 27, in-air effectiveness 12, and zoom 14, which it needed that bump up. Let's be real, 13 was really low.
13 is just really antiquated at this point on SMGs.
Yeah, so but the range is up there on this thing. And it's got some unique perks to come along with it. And also I want to point out that it's aggressive. So yeah, I was gonna say precision, because this one feels like a precision to me for some reason, but it's not. Because I was gonna say, well, precisions get that little bit of recoil help, but this is aggressive, so it is what it is. 7 stability, which can be rough. But if you play like most SMG players out there, you're probably more concerned about range than anything, like Tony was saying with the zoom.
Definitely.
So yeah, interesting weapon here. So I already talked about Cascade Point a little bit. I'm just going to go ahead and jump into that perk just for 1 second, because I already had the numbers pulled up, and just kind of take a look at what that does to the weapon. Because Cascade Point is like, the way I like to think about it, is Harmony, but for rate of fire. Instead of damage, you're just increasing that rate of fire. And for this weapon, it takes it to 857 RPM, almost up to a lightweight 900 RPM.
Tell us what that TTK is just one more time for us.
Oh yeah, so that's a 0.56 TTK.
0.56 TTK. Wow.
And it's forgiving too, because that's it. And someone is gonna be so mad at me if I've messed up these numbers, but I'm pretty sure I did the calculations right. And that is 7 crit and 2 body, so it's really, really good. That's sidearm levels, I think, is the best way to compare it, because sidearms get that real fast. They can get their TTKs up real easily. I'll just put it that way. You put 1 damage perk on something, you're like, oh, this is a 0.45 TTK. What? Like on a sidearm. But to see that on an SMG is pretty crazy. Now you have to get a kill. Yeah. I say that. You don't have to necessarily get a kill like you would on Harmony, because to get this one to proc, all you have to do is it's either get a kill or get a sustained amount of precision hits within a certain amount of time. And that depends on the weapon you're using too. I do highly encourage you to go check out Rock D's Reddit post.
It's crazy.
We could do a whole episode, I feel like, on how this perk works, because it depends on which archetype of weapon you're using to get the primary shots. And then on screen, you'll see a thing come up that says, okay,
Cascade Point
perk
ready.
Yes, that.
Yeah, Cascade Point ready, yeah.
And then you have... how many seconds was it? I
think it's something like 4.4, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think 4.5 seconds to swap weapons and use Cascade Point, and 5.5 seconds. Yeah, to use Cascade Point, and then that's only active for
2.5 seconds.
2.5 seconds. So you only need 0.56 seconds to get the kill. So as long as you swap at the right time, which that's very similar to Harmony, it's just a shorter span for all your actions, which makes me think like, well, what is a crafted version of this going to look like when we can get a enhanced version, which usually extends timers. Isn't as applicable for this weapon, but this is a really cool perk. It's cool to see it on this submachine gun that appears to do work in the Crucible if you get it going. So that was the first perk. I was like, I gotta hit this right away because I had to wrap my brain around it all week. So
and you told me as well, this is something that I was thinking about. Like anytime you get some sort of like an RPM increase, oftentimes you end up getting like more like reticle bounce, more like less stability and that sort of thing with it. But you were saying that you procced it in the Crucible and you felt like it was just spitting more bullets, right? And like no other change for the most part.
I wasn't playing around with it in Crucible. It was in PvE, but still the weapon should function the same. And I didn't notice anything that was like, oh, this is like way difficult. Like it just straight up fired faster with the same effects that it normally would have. So
gotcha.
I would think of it more like Desperado, maybe. Like if you're used to using that on a pulse, that's probably what this feels more like.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I think it's a really cool option. I definitely I haven't grabbed the role that I want on really any of the Dawning weapons because I've spent so much time on Glacioclasm the past few weeks. But I planned to this last week. I've just been piling up Dawning Essence, and I'm just going to turn it in. Definitely going to go for Cascade Point. I'm really interested in Perpetual Motion, things to help me nail that hit once I swap to the weapon to use Cascade Point. I'm really interested in things that are going to up my handling, that times to, well, I guess it's not going to help me swap to it, but anything that's going to help me in my stability or handling at all for any reason. I guess Slick Draw is kind of the go-to, like if you're thinking of swapping to something really fast, but it decreases target acquisition so much. I'm not sure that I would want to lean on that for any reason. I haven't found a reason that I would want to use this yet, unless I was just S tier aim all the time and didn't rely on aim assist at all. But
yeah, and I've got to say, 53 base handling is not bad at all.
Right.
In general. I mean, especially obviously if you're ended up moving over to some Peacekeepers, but that's kind of just a different conversation. But 53 just base handling is not bad at all. And I certainly wouldn't want to stack into like Slick Draw to get something substantially over that, especially when you've got something like Perpetual Motion, which has no downsides.
You've got me actually, now that I've like said it out loud and like, oh wait, I got to do the swap. I'm not going to have certain things activated yet. Now, if you're leaning Cascade Point for any weapon, I think you're going to want to look for those short-term perks. And so Tap the Trigger really stands out in that third column because it activates as soon as you start,
it's true,
laying it in. That feels pretty good. That plus 40 stability kicking in. Yep. Along with a better accuracy cone size and your max recoil
as well.
kick. Yeah, so that feels pretty good for a weapon that has 7 stability. That plus 40 stability is gonna do you some good. I like that idea a lot. So I'm leaning towards that for this weapon now. Because like you said, the zoom matters so much. This SMG doesn't have a ton of zoom. It has decent range, has decent handling. How can we capitalize on the things that make it good, play it for how it is?
Exactly.
I don't really want to max out range on this thing like I would on other weapons. Like, yes, they bumped up the zoom a bit, but I don't think it's enough to compete with the other SMGs out there. I could be totally off, but just looking at what it is on paper and knowing SMGs, I would want to lean into this thing for what it is.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that people that main SMGs are still gonna, try to rock out max range as much as possible.
That's true.
If you're going for Cascade Point, for example, then you obviously can't get rangefinder. Then I think exactly what you said: Perpetual Motion, Tap the Trigger in particular. Otherwise, I think if it were me, I'd still probably double down on range on the rest of it. But I can definitely see your point. Cascade Point, Frenzy being kind of a sleeper, per the usual being kind of a sleeper. I mean, you're in combat and you get rewarded for just being alive in combat. 15% damage increase, 50 handling, 50 reload speed, and you're just kind of going zooming around the map. Like I said, especially if you have something like PKs on that continue to just improve the feel of SMGs, right?
Right.
So, you've got the Frenzy, of course. You've got the Cascade point. You've got Rangefinder, which should be obvious. We shouldn't have to talk about Gutshot trait, and so I won't.
I'll say something about it just real quick. If you're thinking about it, no, it doesn't even change your adjusted time to kill. So if you're going in like, I'm going to miss some shots, but maybe Gutshot will help. No, it doesn't even help your time to kill in that way. The only way it helps your time to kill is if you hit all body shots, and even then, it's only 0.1 seconds worth of different. Like, it's hardly anything. It's a 1.1 and brings it to 1.0 like second TTK, which is not good anyway. Why are you doing that? So don't do it.
You heard it here first, people. Otherwise, you've got your Rampage, of course, as well, which should be, again, fairly straightforward. But I think most people are going to be trying to go for the Cascade point just for the novelty of it, and the Rangefinder. Maybe a little bit of Frenzy dashed in there. But yeah, Perpetual Motion and Tap the Trigger, definitely some great options in the first column.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much all I have to say about this one. It's got great recoil direction.
Yes, true.
So it's got that going for it. There's nothing really else that stands out to me other than the high handling and the high range on just the base of the gun. But like we said, not enough zoom to really push it to those extremes. So that's kind of where I end up landing on this thing.
Yeah, can I ask one more question? As far as the numbers, so how do 750s? So what is Funnel Web? Is Funnel Web adaptive? Like, I'm just wondering how 750s end up stacking up against something like the archetype of a weapon that I see fairly often with Rangefinder in the Crucible.
Say the question one more time. Sorry, I'm realizing I might have done some of my numbers wrong on this whole SMG. So go ahead, hit me one more time, and I'll be able to correct myself.
750 aggressive frame SMGs versus, I assume that Funnel Web is an adaptive. Hold on for a second.
I think Funnel Web is a lightweight.
Is it a lightweight?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I didn't know that, huh?
Yeah, it's a lightweight. Yeah, because it does that 900 RPM super fast fire rate.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so how does it? So how do 750 aggressive stack up against something like Funnel Web? Because Funnel Web also has 14 zoom. Of course, it has 900 RPM versus 750 RPM. But I'm just curious, for my folks in the Crucible, is Cold Front going to be something that they can use similar in effectiveness to their funnel webs, their max range funnel webs at 14 zoom, and also have rangefinder on it? I'm just curious.
I feel like they feel entirely different. As someone who really likes lightweights, they feel really different. But also, I also do like some aggressives because there's the Gambit SMG that I just love. Like, Borrowed Time has just been so good to me for so long, and I know that they kind of nerfed it down a little bit. I can't remember exactly the changes that they made to it.
I think they nerfed the zoom, I believe. I think they nerfed the zoom by 1.
Which is the thing that helps it so much, but as far as just the frame of it and the way that it feels, I just love that thing. And so there are aggressives that I really like. So it just depends. And I realized that I did do some of my numbers wrong, so I'm going to have to take back some of the stuff I said here because I was just so sucked into this being a precision frame that I said some precision frame numbers. So
okay, all right.
I'm gonna bring back what I knew that I was going to get. This Cascade point was going to throw me off, and I was going to be thinking of something.
To your credit, it's a complicated perk. And I agree that folks that are interested in that nitty gritty, definitely go check out that post from DC Rock DC on Reddit.
Yeah, so aggressive. So if we got that 750 and divide it, so this is saying, I mean, according to this, it's even faster, which I don't completely understand. Scary. Yeah, so but it's also like different numbers. I was looking at the precision data set the whole time, so it's gonna be so funny if I have all this wrong and I'm just like way off. But it takes your 750 to over 1,000 RPM is what this says, which I can't comprehend right now. And so I'm like, I feel like I need to go double check this. But no, it still is only, even if it is, it says just over 1,000 RPM, 1,071, I think.
Yep, that's what it is.
It's putting you at 0.5 second TTK. So it's still it's still reasonable, like in the ball field of what I was saying earlier, and still 8 crit, 2 body. So everything, I think everything we were saying still remains true. Just our numbers were slightly off there because I was looking at the wrong frame. But still at 0.5 second TTK, it's not as forgiving as I was saying earlier, but it's still really, really good.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah. Now I'm wondering what I said earlier a few minutes ago. If I said for sure,
it was very similar. It was very similar numbers.
No. Even just I want to just reiterate just one more time that the head for aggressive frames is crit is 22 for a crit and 15 for a body. So if I happen to have said precision frame, someone can come back and be like, okay, yeah, that's where we're at. But yeah, as far as everything we said for the perks, everything remains true. What we were saying. So I think everything we said here remains true. I did want to point out it has Hawkeye Breach armaments on Cold Front, which does give you that extra increased damage against barricades. So that's it can be a big deal. I've been messing around with it a lot recently though because of the new pulse rifle, which I really wanted to give a shout out at the beginning of this episode for as well. But Mercs, who used to host this podcast, basically designed the weapon entirely. It's his baby. So it's a very cool gun, very different, has just a lot of different moving parts. It just came out with its second iteration of it, or I guess catalyst today. I haven't dove into that yet, but I've been messing. It's caused me to look a lot into Hawkeye Breach armaments and the anti-barrier, because it's one of the only PvE perks that has an effect in PvP, and it stacks on top of Hawkeye Breach armaments to give you more damage against Titan barricades, because as I mentioned earlier, Titan barricades, I'm losing my mind over here trying to fight them. So anything that has Hawkeye Breach armaments, even if it's not like a clear cut, like I can take that thing down quick, at least I'm doing some extra damage to it with a primary instead of having used my secondary for it.
Exactly. I like it. All right, so what weapon is up next after Cold Front?
Okay, now here's one I can talk about off the top of my head, and that is Glacioclasm. I'm trying to figure out where I even want to start with this thing. I guess I should start by saying it's a high-impact fusion rifle. So high-impact fusion rifles have been through it. Their charge time was very high. It was moved up to a second, and now it's a little bit less than a second. And then they do 66 to the body. Fusion rifles don't crit at all. And Glacioclasm, while it's a super long charge time, the stats on Glacioclasm haven't changed from previous years, and they are super jacked. Like, Glacioclasm has, look at this, it's 63 range, which is the highest of any high-impact fusion rifle. All other high-impact fusion rifles, the highest they get is 52. So 63 range. It's ridiculously high. Yeah, it's stability 29, handling 33, reload speed 15, inventory 26, aim assist 55. So that's its weakness. 55 is the lowest aim assist out of all high-impact fusion rifles. Recoil direction 78, mag size 5, in-air effectiveness 4, and zoom at 16. So 16 too, so that's another thing. The zoom is plus in most high-impact fusion rifles, pretty much all fusion rifles now, unless you have a crazy zoom scope. It just doesn't really happen anymore, though, are 15 zoom. And so this one is one up at 16 zoom. So
you said a while back, and so, of course, I'm learning as we go that, because I'm not the fusion guy, you are, that they ended up compressing the zoom on fusion rifles, correct? So therefore, like 16 zoom doesn't matter as much versus 16 versus 15 as much as maybe like an SMG, like 16 versus 15, correct?
That's true, but it still matters a bit, and you're stacking on the highest range of any high impact on top of the highest zoom. So the fact that all those are stacked together, it's like, oh, dang. And so people look at this thing, and I'm just going to go ahead and blurt out my opinion right here from the beginning, because I have tons of people asking, what role do you want? Blah, 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 and because we're going to dive into the perks, but I got to say right off the bat, none of it matters. The high range, the high zoom, none of it matters if there are other fusions out there with rangefinder. They're going to hit for this thing will max out its kill potential. Even if you max out all the range completely, the best perks you can get on it, 100 range, you're going to max out at about 18 meters. Rangefinder Epicurean maxes out at over 19 meters. So does a main ingredient. And still,
Scary.
to this day. And so...
Scary.
Yeah, and that fires faster than this. So you can... And what happens is after range fall off on a fusion rifle, it doesn't matter if you hit all 5 bolts from this thing, you're not going to one-hit kill somebody. But I will on my Epicurean, and I will on my main ingredient. And so with rangefinder, I gotta clarify there. And even if you don't have those things, if I have a burden of guilt from Trials of Osiris, that's just a good burden of guilt, I'm firing like 2 of those bursts almost as fast as I can fire 1 of these, and I'm hitting at 17 meters. So you're only gaining like a meter using this, even at the highest range, the highest zoom, you're only gaining like a meter. And so what's the point of charging a rifle for a full second when I could do it in almost half a second with a different gun and have a meter difference? So I just want to say all that up front because I have so many people ask me, what do you go for this thing? Look, it can get this much range and get this much stability. And that's cool that it can do those things. And if you like high impact fusion rifles, then that's great. Like, I think this is a really solid fusion rifle. Even on paper, use it in your hands, it feels solid, but the charge time is so long, and they changed it from last year to where the only speed perk you can get is Kickstart. And so you have to play a very specific way and anticipate your opponents in a very specific way, whereas the last year's iteration had Backup Plan, which is great on high impact fusion rifles because it turns everything into a 4-bolt kill no matter the resilience level, and you can pop it out and shoot it in close to those speeds of the other fusion rifles I was talking about, even faster than them, depending on how you have it set up. Whereas normally without Backup Plan or anything, it would still take 4 bolts to kill even at 10 resil. It takes only 3 at other resilience level, but most of the people out there are running high resil, so you're going to be firing up to 4 bolts. Why not do it really fast with Backup Plan? But this fusion rifle doesn't have it, so I'm really bummed. Is all that to say I'm really bummed that this fusion rifle doesn't have rangefinder. It doesn't have Backup Plan anymore, and Backup Plan would have been so cool with Offhand Strike, the perk we were talking about earlier. It has Offhand Strike now, firing from the hip.
Yeah.
If I could have whipped this thing out of nowhere and hip fired it and been super accurate,
that's a great
4-bolt kill, that would have been so cool. But I don't know, just for PvP, there is a standard role you can go for here where if you want to max out your range, projection fuse, and you could go for extended barrel, which will up your recoil direction a little bit. And then you could go under pressure, which is cool, and then high impact reserves, and you could do a charge time masterwork even to up your charge time a little bit. High impact reserves will compensate. You could 3-bolt kill any resil, but you're still doing it pretty slow. Like with a charge time masterwork even, it's still, you're not getting as fast as a precision frame. And so it's just a tough pill to swallow is what I'm getting at here.
For all the fusion rifle mains out there.
Yeah. And I know people love high impacts. And so I do want to round this out and say that there is some cool, if you want to synergize with Slide Shot Kickstart, that exists. You can do that. I don't personally like it, but you can get some good stability and range on a sliding shot and make it a lot faster and more powerful. That's cool. There is one thing that I actually think is really cool here. It just, when I was playing with it in any sort of Trials of Osiris match, it never came that helpful, and that was the double accuracy perk combo of Under Pressure and Eye of the Storm, because it's a high impact fusion rifle, so you're charging it for a longer period of time. You're probably getting shot at. Eye of the Storm procs, you got Under Pressure already giving you that huge accuracy boost plus the 30 stability on top of that. If you max out for range and a little bit of stability, you've got just a jack stat monster that like pinpoints its accuracy down and boosts your aim assist at the same. Like, it just feels like it would just be I said aim assist. It's really just all accuracy perks between Eye of the Storm and Under Pressure. And I did get some shots off with it, and it was really cool, but I ran into that problem I was just talking about, where even if I'm connecting the bolts outside of my damage fall off, like I hit people, not this weekend in Trials, but last weekend, and when it was the OG Trials of Osiris map.
Burnout.
Yeah, Burnout. And I shot someone through bridge, like from the other side of bridge to like the other side where you like would have to hop across the gap and everything. And it was doing for complete damage fall off, 33 a bolt, having my damage in half, and I hit all my shots because I had both of these things procced. But it didn't matter because they didn't die, and it's a 1 second charge time. You don't get a second chance in a high competitive setting. So, yeah, I could go on and on about this thing.
Interesting. I'm learning. I'm sitting here learning. Let me think. I feel like I had some questions. So, some pointers. So, did you feel like Omelon Fluid Dynamics it was impactful at all? I mean, I guess you're already kind of going for higher stability with like perks.
Well, you got to think Omelon Dynamics though is only helpful on primaries, because on a special weapon it's not ever active because you only ever have like 2 in the mag. So
yeah.
It's just one of those bummers that like, okay, that's the perk I'm never gonna use. So that's another bummer, is there's no intrinsic trait that's really helping you here. Harmony, they've added new, I think Harmony was there before. I think the popular thing, and the thing that I think you want this fusion rifle for, is PvE, if I'm being real, because you've got Reservoir Burst, Golden Tricorn on a Void weapon, you got Repulsor Brace, that's just made to go together. Repulsor Brace and Golden Tricorn abilities and overshields. So there's really cool stuff here, but just not for PvP. It's just not gonna happen.
Gotcha. And didn't you have thoughts when we were talking about this for an extended period of time before? Didn't you have thoughts about high impacts in PvE anyway, and how maybe like they weren't as viable as faster charge time fusion rifles?
Yeah, and that's another problem. That's another reason why I'm like, I really want to like this thing, but even in PvE, I can put out. It is cool that it has Golden Triangle. Like, I can put out a huge amount of damage, 50% extra, and if I have volatile rounds and I'm getting an overshield, it's not as good as if I had it on a rapid fire. I'd rather have that, but just to have these combos at all on a fusion rifle is interesting. So, in that regard, you want to pick one up for PvE, I think.
Okay, and if I was going to pick one up for PvE, I'd be looking at what, like a Golden Tricorn and maybe like a slide shot. Maybe a repulsor brace.
Slide shot would be interesting, but I think because Golden Tricorn is such a hard-hitting perk, you're not going to be clearing mobs with it, and so you really and it's such a slow-firing thing. I'm really only going to be whipping it out, doing that high-damage stuff, getting Golden Tricorn procced, and taking out some major yellow bars, and then putting it away. Because that was the other problem I ran into so many problems with this thing. I'm getting mad talking about it. There's no ammo. There's just not that much ammo. You get, I think the total is like 13 or something like that you can carry. And so you only get to use it for a little bit and then it's gone. And then it's like, man, I just wish I had something else. Like, I wish I was just running something else. And that's what I kept feeling like. So.
Gotcha. Okay. So Glacioclasm, not... I mean, maybe on paper it seems kind of nice, but maybe not the killer. Yeah, maybe not the killer that we thought it was. Okay.
Unfortunately, yeah. And here's the thing to think about. What if high impacts come back one day and you got a combo like Under Pressure, Eye of the Storm? Like that would be a sick weapon. If high impacts, got their time in the sun again, that you might want to hold on to one of those.
Honestly, I think they will. I mean, there's only 3 archetypes for fusion rifles, right? Is it only
there's
3?
4. There's 4, 5 if you count the the one no one speaks of horizontal shooting. But yes, 4 archetypes. Rapid. You got rapid, adaptive, precision, and then this.
That's right. Adaptive, precision. Okay.
Yeah. So it's just not the one, right? Any of the other archetypes, I feel like I could make work. This one, if it doesn't have some sort of speed thing, which they took away, then I don't feel like I can use it.
Yeah. Well, I gotta say, I do agree that maybe if you get something nice on this one, you should kind of like store it away, because I feel like these would come back, the high impacts would come back sooner than the rapid fire ones, at the very least in PvP.
True, I agree with that. Yeah.
So yeah, put something in the vault. Basically, you go put something in the 599 out of 600 vault, and just like let it sit for a bit.
All right. Well, the next one that we have to talk about won't take up too much of our time at all, because it's a machine gun, Avalanche Dawning machine gun.
We always say this about machine guns, by the way. It happened last time too.
I know, but like
machine guns are always just so straightforward. It's like, well, yeah, and that's it. That's literally it.
That's
it. Well,
yep. It's funny because I feel like this one actually has the opposite problem of what I would want to. I guess I should say what it is first. We got Avalanche. It's a 450 RPM machine gun. We've had this one, so I don't feel like the need to go over the stats too much. I will just go ahead and read them off here real fast. But it's a machine gun that has 450, so it's not the fastest, but it's fast. And it has one interesting stat that comes off, so that's why I want to read it. It's got range 50, stability 40, handling 40, reload speed 60, aim assist 90. Hello? Inventory 20, recoil direction 70, mag size 57, and in-air effectiveness 6. But yeah, 90 aim assist. Nothing on the entire machine gun list. Well, I guess some exotics, but that's it. Outside of exotics, the highest you get is 72 on corrective measure from Vault of Glass, but 90.
Yeah, I gotta say, just straight off the rip, people be looking for this thing. I gotta say, like,
really,
and I think so, because like I loved the Hammerhead meta. I really did. I love the Hammerhead meta. I love 450 like RPM machine guns, and I want to try to make them work. I'm not saying that it'll be meta per se, but I think that you can get a roll of this that will. We could talk about the rolls or whatnot, but I think you can actually get a roll of this that you could put some kills on, some substantial kills on in PvP. Now, take that with a grain of salt. Again, machine guns are not meta, haven't been meta for a long time in PvP, but these things are like hella fun to use. And I could even, obviously there's some roles that we could go over as well that would be pretty fun in PvP. I'm sorry, PvE as well.
Yeah.
But I said it, fun, maybe not the most effective, but definitely a lot of fun. And I really, really like Avalanche a lot. When it came out, I was looking for rolls. I still have a couple rolls, and I'll be looking for something special on this one to try to just have some fun with.
I'm curious. So I have one thing that I thought would be special. I'll just say my thing that I wanted this to be, but why I don't think I'm going to enjoy it, and I'll spill it all out right now. So the thing that interests me was like, oh, it's got Cascade Point. Like I could use something else and swap to it and do like, have that faster TTK. Because if you get it swapped and using that formula, if I just put it all out here, it would bring the RPM up to 642 from 450, which is a 0.37 second TTK. So it's like a blink and they're dead. That's with 5 crits, so you have to be very accurate.
Yeah, it's true.
But still, like, machine, 90 aim assist, let me remind you.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
So it could happen. But the problem here is Cascade Point, you're increasing your rate of fire on something with very limited ammo that you pick up one time and it's gone. And so for me, it's like, oh man, if I had Adagio or Harmony, something like that, where I could utilize that ammo better, because Adagio is the opposite. It's like, your slower rate of fire, but you're doing more damage. Something like that I'd be into. But this, it's going to waste my ammo so fast and target lock is another new perk, which I'm not even going to try to go into right now, because it's the most complicated perk I think I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to go into that, because all we're talking about on it here is a machine gun. But I will say it depends on how much ammo you have and using it on target for an extended period of time. So that's not really interesting to me in PvP. So really, I'd be going for consistency stuff like tap the trigger dynamic sway, which does, that looks pretty solid with 90 aim assist and those two perks combined. But that's probably where my knowledge ends for this machine gun.
Yeah, and keep in mind, just to be clear, target lock is a brand new perk. Its damage increases the longer this weapon remains on target. So just kind of an FYI on that. For me personally, man, I just love incandescent and kind of building into that power fantasy. A lot of times when I'm shooting off my power, so for example, if it was a rocket, I'm always trying to look for like 2 people standing next to each other, 3 people standing next to each other or whatnot. And so, just getting a kill with this weapon and then people explode via incandescent, building into the Solar 3.0 fantasy as well, depending upon what you end up putting on for your perks and your fragments, etc. But just getting that air of effect, that AoE damage on that second or maybe third target to hopefully be able to clean up with the remainder of the ammo that you have with, the limited ammo that you can pick up with machine gun from heavy in PvP is just really interesting to me. But I do agree that consistency perks are probably the play here. Encore, maybe the new rework perk is not bad for PvP. Again, that just depends on how accurate you are with the ammo that you have to try to get that second or third kill, because that'll matter. But yeah, the dynamic sway reduction, the tap the trigger, that combination, obviously. Damage perks are cool, but for the same reason, limited ammo. But you do have the swashbuckler, you do have the adrenaline junkie, And yeah, of course you do have Vorpal as well, which on power weapons is an additional 5 to 10% in PvP. So your mileage may vary, obviously, with that one as well. But Incandescent is the cool one for me personally. I feel like that's the one that I'd probably want on it to just knock out somebody, hopefully that's standing next to an opponent, which often is the time whenever I'm trying to push somebody with power ammo.
Right, and I don't think we should sleep on Adrenaline Junkie or Swash by any means, because if you manage to, I never see anybody do anything like that in the Crucible, but it would be cool if I did, because that gives you a 0.4 second TTK with only 3 crit in one body. That's really lenient for a very fast TTK. Now, granted, you only have 4.5 seconds to do that. With the normal version of those perks. So just something to kind of look out for, though, if you rely on those abilities. Yeah,
I can see it proccing. I mean, like, keep in mind, you could just throw out Celestial Fire. You could tap them up just a little bit, throw out Celestial Fire, and then you end up getting the Swashbuckler ×5, right? If you end up killing them with the Celestial Fire. You get that, you go burr. Just roll out.
That's true. That's true.
And just try to hit anything that you see downwind, basically. So you can play around with it for sure, but obviously that's, just takes a little bit of thought and a little bit of luck maybe too.
Well, one that you can't play around with too much is the new Zephyr sword after this that we're moving on to, which when this came out was really cool because it was the first one to have a stasis type perk with it. It had that cold steel perk, and so they've kind of added on some other perks to go along with it and refreshed the perk pool, but just a sword in PvP is just unless you're using an exotic sword, it's just rough to get a sword to work for you. I feel like I can never reach my target quite the way I want to with a legendary sword. I'm like, oh, I got him, and then it's like, oh, it didn't count. I was right next to him, So I just feel like unless I'm using it to really reserve ammo, there's just not much stuff here that I would go for. And even then, if I'm doing something like that, then I really would want to be using an exotic sword, because these ones just don't feel like they cut it for me. So
yeah, if you're getting aggressive, then I would say definitely, like, just right off the rip, using heavy, like most people use heavy, myself included. You pick up heavy, you just want to go ahead and just use that heavy, right? Mm-hmm. The only time that I really died with legendary swords these days, which is completely valid, is that folks end up storing the sword.
Yes.
They end up getting back into a fight, and then you're just like, oh wait, I'm sorry, what? You had a sword the whole time, but you were shooting me with a hand cannon a second ago. Can you please choose one? Choose one, please, so I know what I'm fighting here. But they will slice up my entire team, because we didn't know that they had sword ammo because they've been fighting us with a hand cannon the entire time, So I think that's what's kind of cool about legendary swords. There's definitely a play style around them, and they can be effective, but you just got to think a little bit deeper about it. That's all.
Right.
But I'm definitely like the whatever that void projectile sword is. That's my type of sword. What's that one called? It's
Black Talon.
Yeah, Black Talon. That's my type of heavy sword right there. When I pick up heavy, I'm trying to go for it like immediately.
I do like the ones that I think it was more in D1 that like shot the blade out, sort of deal. I like that kind of stuff for sure.
Me too. I like that. Yeah, the projectile sword. There's the one from Trials of Osiris, right? The solar one, Solar Scar. Is that what it's called? Solar Scar?
Yes, uh-huh.
Yeah. Thank
I'm
God
always
it had
forgetting
a name
about
that
them
was
because
very
never pick up a sword anymore.
Yeah,
you just never use them. But yeah, cool stuff for sure. I think if you were going for this sword at all to use in PvP, I think that On Guard is an interesting perk for... I take this for somebody who does not use swords that much, but 30% increased damage for just pulling it out and using the sword sounds good for taking out a super. Could be wrong about the way that operates, but as far as I know, that works in PvP too, so that would be something that I would look for. Other than that, there's not really any perks for PvP here. You're going to be looking at PvE.
Agreed. Yeah.
Well, I think we can wrap up that one pretty fast. We got some other weapons here, and that brings us to close to the Dawning stuff, which was really cool to kind of hear your different opinions on those, Tony. But I'm excited to talk about the new Iron Banner stuff, because if you're listening to this episode, more than likely it's after the Dawning has passed, unless you jumped on it right away. And so if that's the case, then you're right in the middle of Iron Banner, which comes out at the beginning of January. And so you're playing a brand new mode that I don't even know what it is yet, but I'm very excited to play with some Cabal turrets. Yeah. So I'm excited about that. But I am also excited about these two new weapons. We got the returning Dark Decider and returning Gunnora's Axe. So we'll hit Dark Decider first here. The rapid fire auto rifle with some new perks added to the perk pool, which I am excited about a few of them here. So rapid fire auto rifles. That's a 720 RPM archetype, 20 to the head, 13 to the body, and your optimal time to kill against a 10 resil is 0.77. So that's pretty generous compared to all the other auto rifles. It is the fastest killing auto rifle at that resilience level. You have to hit 100% of your headshots, but it's pretty deadly. 0.77, that's a good TTK for an auto rifle. Just for reference, that's the TTK of Vex Missile Class and Quicksilver Storm. So very deadly. You have to hit all your headshots though, and it's quite a few of them, 10. So I like rapid fires though. The one that really stands out to me when I think about them, and the one that I'll probably be comparing this to in my mind as I look at it, is the one from Season of the Splicer, the Chroma Rush. That thing just melted. I know Tony before the show was talking about Crate a little bit. There's some rapid fires out there, but there's not too many. But Chroma Rush is the one that stands out to me. For Dark Decider though, it's an arc rapid fire. We've got range of 25, stability 49, handling 39, reload speed 46, aim assist 72, recoil direction 43, max size 50, in-air effectiveness 10, and zoom 16. So everything's very standard there with a pretty low recoil direction number. I think the low stuff is the stuff that stands out on this one, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I was sitting here just comparing it versus a bunch. I actually love 720 RPM auto rifles. They feel like amazing.
Yeah.
I love the reticle. Honestly, they might be my favorite archetype. And like gun type or auto rifles. So I was excited to see that the Dark Decider was coming back. I was sitting here comparing it to some of my other like favorite ones, the Veles-X, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Crate, of course, which I loved when it first came out for Witch Queen. Chroma Rush, which is one of the coolest looking guns in the game, I gotta say. That thing just looks like a sports car. It's crazy. All very like similar stats. There's some standouts like Crate actually kind of had some thick stats for this particular archetype. But still, there's not much variation between any of these weapons, basically. I feel like Dark Decider might be the most similar to maybe like Veles-X from the year 1, year 2 versions of the 720.
Stuff, yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah, and it's tough because this one, like they all are similar, but this one falls on the low side of the similar. It's like, oh, look at this stability, like is just lower, the recoil direction, the stuff that I feel like I need to really hit with a rapid fire. I think it's going to be just first glance the perks that are going to make this thing stand out if it does.
100%, which is oftentimes I feel like what Iron Banner weapons do, because they want you to just farm and keep playing Iron Banner to get back in there. So you're going back in there really for perks to try to fill out the deficiencies, right, of just the base stats themselves. So you're looking for something like an Iron Reach to try to, fill out some of that range. But then, like you also just want to make sure that you're balancing it out with the barrels, et cetera, to make sure you're not giving up too much stability. I feel like the handling, I'm trying to check. I always felt like the handling on these was, I guess maybe that's just a feeling. It always felt pretty good.
But it looks low.
Exactly. The base handling on the stat itself is pretty low across these for the most part. I think between the ones that I've just discussed, Crate has the highest handling at 44. It also actually has the highest stability as well at 58. Crate is probably the best like base stat 720 RPM in the game. If I had to guess. But either way, my point is, I agree. Like the handling being so low never really felt like low handling.
Yeah.
So anyway, as far as the Dark Decider, like I said, I'd probably be looking for something like an Iron Reach, rangefinder for sure, because obviously if I can get rangefinder on the end of it, then that means I've got a little more leeway to put a few other things on the barrel, et cetera, to kind of build out some of the other stats. It does have like 49 stability is not bad whatsoever to start. So that's great. And if I could avoid giving up stability with that Iron Reach, then that'd be great. So rangefinder would probably be something I'm looking for. Dragonfly, did get that buff.
Yeah.
Dragonfly did get that buff. And it is actually hitting right now in the PvP. I wanted to mention that.
Okay, yeah.
It is actually hitting now. So if folks didn't know, I'm sure most of you do, Dragonfly got a kind of a buff, a de facto buff, because the Dragonfly spec, the mod that enhanced Dragonfly, got rolled into Dragonfly, just the perk itself. So they got rid of the mod, and just rolled the benefits directly into the perk itself. So Dragonfly, the perk itself, the trait itself, ended up getting a buff, and it is actually quite good in PvP. So it's something that I've started to look for on hand cannons again in particular, but it would be certainly something that I wouldn't be upset about getting on this auto rifle. That being said, obviously it would have to be kind of a, it's got to be decked out somewhere else as far as like stats. It's got to be almost perfect stats for me to use that in conjunction, just because Dragonfly is in the same spot as Rangefinder. Oh, could you imagine if Dragonfly was in a different category than Rangefinder?
I don't know. I don't know if I want to sacrifice anything, because there's so many good dynamic sway reduction and rangefinder on this thing. Would be a sick combo, because I can't remember if it was on this podcast that Kit was talking about it, or if Merc was guesting here, or on Firing Range somewhere was talking about it. One of the devs, or Kit. I can't. It's funny. I'm mixing up Kit with the devs, but what does that mean anymore? But the dynamic sway reduction is one of those few perks that actually doesn't just affect the initial accuracy, but your accuracy cone growth side. And so let's see here. Yeah, so it's every successive shot. That negative 5% accuracy cone size and negative 10% accuracy cone growth, which not a lot of weapons have that. Usually it's just the initial accuracy cone size that it has the effect on. But this one, it helps you as you're firing the gun, which is even more important on a rapid fire that you're shooting out 720 rounds per minute on. So I think that dynamic sway reduction might be a must-have in that third column, and so that makes me be like, oh no, I don't want to give up that for Dragonfly. But
no, I feel you.
I get the dilemma.
I guess what I'm trying to say is that, number one, like, absolutely, I think the dynamic sway is by far the best perk in that first category, by far. Like, if you're going for something in that first, perk category on the end, I would go for dynamic. I would go for DSR for sure. Now, I guess my point with this is I've never felt like I've absolutely needed DSR on this particular archetype.
Oh, okay, I see.
That's my personal experience. Take it with a grain of salt. DSR is a very strong perk, obviously. So, but I'm just wishful thinking. I am very excited about the new Dragonfly perk. I want it on as many things as possible. If I could get it in conjunction with Rangefinder, that'd be fantastic. But going for exactly what's on the gun right now, Dynamic Sway and Rangefinder seem like an absolutely mean combination on this thing, and certainly one that if I was looking for something off the rip, those two would be what I want on the end.
Yeah, I feel like it's going to be hard for me to pass up Rangefinder, but also I feel like people are going to look at things like Iron Reach and Iron Grip, but I feel like the perks themselves are going to do more for this gun than these stat boosts of plus 20, minus 30. Because there's sometimes we have a perk, like Under Pressure, for instance, on a weapon that's giving like plus 30 stability, and people are like you would much rather have that perk, but it's more so to do with the accuracy cones of them. People don't even realize the stability parts of what's going on, and really like stuff like dynamic sway reduction, where it's changing your accuracy cone and letting those shots connect better. I feel like those are the ones that are going to make it worth it here, rather than things like Iron Reach and Iron Grip. I
feel that.
Curious. Well, two things here, and we talked about this before the show, because Gutshot Straight is on this thing, and for those who don't know, I think this is the one, actually. I was talking about this earlier, about how there's some weapons that Gutshot Straight is actually pretty interesting on, and that's because on auto rifles, they get a 1.2 times multiplier to the damage, not just 1.1. On auto rifles specifically. So you just got a ton of bullets coming out with the body shot multiplier of 1.2 on it, and that brings your complete body shot TTK to 1 second. All body shots, 13 body shots out of a rapid fire, which isn't terrible, but then you can also take your adjusted time to kill to 0.83 seconds with 6 crits, 5 body. And so if I take that away, it's still 0.93.
6 crits, 5 bodies. Wow, yeah. That's pretty forgiving. And keep in mind, and I mentioned this before, the fact that, just a regular run-of-the-mill 140 hand cannon in range is 0.87. So
oh yeah. that gets me. So it's just something to think about there. I'm not saying I would go, because I feel like rapid hit just those rapid fire auto rifles. It feels so good when you line up something super sticky with rangefinder and dynamic sway. It's hard to get off that. Gut shot is kind of like how we were talking about Headseeker earlier. You're not changing your optimal. You're just changing how forgiving the weapon is. And so if you're looking for optimal for this thing, I think dynamic sway and rangefinder are definitely going to be the way to go.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Keep in mind as well that this would be if I'm correct, this would be the only non-sunset 720 that can get rangefinder on it.
Yeah, I think you might be right on that. I'm not completely sure, but that sounds right.
Can't get it. Velakadin is completely, doesn't matter whether it's a random roll or not, that's completely sunset.
Oh, wait, you got me questioning now.
Yep, I know. I looked at Crate. You can't get rangefinder on, and Chroma Rush you can't get rangefinder on. So
okay, that was going to be my question, because Chroma Rush, while it's gone, and I wanted to bring this up too, if you are looking at this and you're like, I really loved Chroma Rush, but I can't get it anymore, you can get it again. You can get it from Dares of Eternity now, has a new rotation of weapons, and Season of the Splicer weapons are in that rotation.
That's right.
So
that's right.
That sidearm I love, Farewell, that's in there. Super forgiving, really great to use. Chroma Rush is in there. There's a lot of cool stuff in there.
And that rotation was last week, by the way. It was because I actually got that sidearm last week when I was running there. I did, and I was thinking about you at the time. I was just like, yo, nice. I'm sure the homie Lego would be excited. I think it was a pretty good roll too that I kept. I can't remember what was on it, but yeah, that's how I knew Season of Splicer was last week. Yeah, so definitely in the rotation. Definitely. You
gotta let me know if you end up using it and what you think of it at all, because it's a tough one to use. Somebody commented about it the other day. They were like, I can't use this thing because it kicks so hard, and I'm like, it does kick, but the kick is like visual. If you just aim where like you're confident in where you're aiming, it doesn't even matter that it's flying all over your screen. You hit your shots.
Yeah, and that's how I feel about it as well, because I'm not the type of person as well that looks at the reticle whenever I shoot. I look at the person, so visual recoil doesn't affect me that much. Now, I will say just for my own people, just give me like 10 seconds of my own stuff, people. I just need to talk to Lego for a second. All right, so the Chroma Rush, I'm sorry, not the Chroma Rush, the Farewell sidearm, which is the Season of the Splicer sidearm that we're talking about. I just pulled it up. I got fluted or full bore. I got accurized or steady rounds. I got a range masterwork.
Oh.
Yep. I got full auto trigger, which is just redundant at this point, unfortunately, and I got thresh. So it's kind of just like the end perks or whatever, but I don't know. It might be consistent. I mean, you said the thing I will always remember about that review that you did, only 60% headshots on lightweights in order to get the optimal TTK.
Yep.
And so it's just something that I always remember. This thing has 96 recoil direction as well, so it's got a fantastic recoil direction. So
that's a good roll. I mean, I know it's redundant. So I have people that are like, this isn't a great roll. What are you talking about? I'm like, this thing, you don't need the best roll on it. You don't need a ton of range like you do other sidearms. If you're trying to outrange a sidearm with this thing, it's not going to work. It's made for those close encounters, those tight situations where you're fighting someone more long range or medium range, and someone pushes into you and you just whip it out and just without a thought land on their head, just for that super forgiving, like you hit one or two body shots, doesn't matter, they're dead in that super fast optimal TTK. So it feels really good. That's a cool roll. I think that's cool. I would be tempted to max out the handling, because you said you got fluted or full bore.
That's correct.
Were the options.
Yep.
Yeah, so that would be tough for me to choose between, because I would want to push the extra range, but at the same time I know it doesn't really matter because you got accurized and a range masterwork, so you're good.
Yeah,
I feel like I would go fluted.
Okay. All right, sounds good. So sorry to take up everybody's time for a second. I just needed to talk to Lego for a second about my new sidearm.
Last thing on the rapid fire, we didn't touch on Golden Tricorn at all, which I'm excited for other reasons, PvE reasons, to get that on an arc rapid fire. Arc Golden Tricorn is so good in PvE because you can always have your Titan elemental punch thanks to I can't remember the name of the aspect fragment right now, but you can always have your elemental punch up with a Titan, so you can always get Golden Tricorn ×2 proc. But even in PvP, Golden Tricorn ×1, the first level of perk, just getting a kill, you got 7 seconds of a 0.67 second TTK with 8 crit 1 body. So 0.67 seconds on an auto rifle. Auto rifles have pretty good range. I feel like that could be pretty deadly. And that, all it is getting a kill. You don't have to reload. You don't have to do anything. It's the better rampage. This is where you see stuff like this happen. So don't trash your golden tricorn roll is what I'm saying. Just try it out. See what you think, especially in 6s.
All right. That sounds good.
All right, let's move on to Gunnora's Axe, the other shotgun for Iron Banner. This one I struggle with too. Like, I'm really excited about it. Two things. I'm really excited about it, but for PvP, I'm not sure where it's going to land for me. And here's why. We got so many good slug shotguns right now, and they all do the same thing, and they all have various ways to increase their range. And to me, on a legendary slug shotgun, if it doesn't have something to really push it over the edge, where does it stand against something like the new Trials slug shotgun that can just get max range, so much aim assist, opening shot, all the solid stuff you want from something? Why would you use this over the new Trials of Osiris shotgun? I guess I should say its stats real quick before I start trashing it. It's a precision slug shotgun, Gunnora's Axe. It's been reprised. I think there are a lot of people who are fans of this, so I shouldn't trash on it too hard, I think. But its actual stats here, let me pull them up. Gunnora's Axe. We've got range of 67, stability 49, handling 65, reload speed 48, inventory 42, aim assist 34. So pretty low aim assist number.
Yeah.
Mag size 6 and in-air effectiveness of 2. So it's got decent range and stability and everything. And handling is mediocre. It's on above average. I'll give it above average handling, 65. And then just that aim assist of 34 though. When you've got others, the Inquisitor and No Reprieve, both amazing shotguns, which both have low aim assist too, but they have perks to push it up much higher. And then if you don't have those perks and you got something else like Blasphemer, which has 61 aim assists, there's huge aim assist
he's
options
forgetting
out
it.
there.
I'm gonna let him finish, Chad. I'm gonna let him finish. Keep going. I'm
I'm curious where you're going there. And then also Heritage.
There we go.
Aim assist.
There we go. So that's kind of the point, is that all these slug shotguns right now, these legendary slug shotguns, are pretty much being overshadowed by Heritage. That's the metric by which legendary slug shotguns are being measured right now. And not only that, it's because you can now craft Heritage with the enhanced perks. So the big thing here being that Heritage is 68, a whopping 68 aim assist, base 70 handling. Gunnora's Axe with, again, 34 aim assists, handling at 65, So obviously the handling, not that big of a difference, but the aim assist is the big thing here. Now, if you want to make the argument that, okay, well, you can put opening shot on Gunnora's Axe, and that ends up giving you plus 20 aim assist, that's still only taking it up to 54 aim assist versus just a base of 68. That's what is that, plus 14 aim assist just off the rip, with base Heritage. And you can run a bunch of other stuff outside of, there's no opening shot on a Heritage, but man, do you even need it? Also, slugs have a range cap as well, so range is not that big of a deal. Heritage has 68 on it. This started out as kind of a Gunnora's Axe conversation, but it always ends up coming back to a Heritage conversation, because Heritage is literally the metric. It's literally the metric for legendary slug shotguns. And the fact that Heritage is now craftable with enhanced perks, you're just stacking out an already stacked shotgun, slug shotgun. So Gunnora's Axe, that's cool. That's all I gotta say about it. Gunnora's Axe, it's cool. That's cool. Sure, we can go for Gunnora's Axe. That's cool. You do you.
I'm sad. I'm sad you made me pull up Heritage's perk pool, because I'm I don't even want to talk about Gunnora's Axe anymore.
It's so juiced. It's insane. So let me mention one more thing. You can actually get the combination on Gunnora's Axe of moving target and opening shot. But you know what? That still takes it up to 4 less aim assist than a base Heritage.
Oh my gosh.
It's just crazy, man. Heritage is just so juiced, and it just makes it, talking about other legendary slug shotguns, really easy, because if it doesn't measure up somewhat to Heritage, perks or otherwise, to bring it up to those base stats, then it's just not even worth, I'm sorry to say, it's just not even worth talking about. It just is what it is. Just go for the Heritage and just craft your Heritage.
There are two things to think about with this. One of those PvE, so it isn't related to this at all.
Okay, I already know what one of them. I already know what it was going to be.
Oh, you probably know what. Oh, yeah.
I already know what it's going to be.
But this one, you actually, I think, emphasized the importance of this to me on a different weapon. But the Skulking Wolf intrinsic origin trait is pretty awesome for, while at low health, Guardian Final Blows with this weapon grant enhanced radar and remove you from the opposing team's radar for 10 seconds.
Substantial.
We've talked about how 10 seconds is an eternity,
very long time in the Crucible
time.
Agreed.
So that, and you could loop that too between encounters. So I don't know. That is one reason you could look for this weapon if you like being sneaky, because that'll play out in Trials of Osiris. That'll play out in comp. You get that sneaky kill, you're off radar. Their teammates like, oh, he's over here, and they're like, I don't see him on radar. You could do whatever you want. You're not going to show up. You can't do whatever you want, but
if you're smart about your pushes, you can definitely chain kills with that. I agree. Yep.
Yeah. So that would be the one thing that I'm like, okay, for PvP, there's one reason you might want this. The other reason, though, non-PvP related, Volt Shot is going to be hot on this thing. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I haven't done the research into this. I applaud Mossy and several others in the Destiny Massive Breakdowns community for doing the deep dive into Jolt, basically, Arc 3.0 Jolt, and how it has a multiplier for every weapon that will do a different amount of damage for Volt Shot, and maybe not in PvP. I'm actually not sure about that, but it doesn't really matter. You're either jolting someone or you're not. But in PvE, that Jolt is going to do a ton of extra damage to bosses if you start looping that Jolt with Volt Shot from a shotgun. So it's going to be something to look out for, I think. I don't have it in my hands yet. I can't say for sure that multiplier information is correct, but given that these people are so much smarter than me and they have told me this is going to be dangerous, I'm going to look out for that.
Yeah, defer to them for sure. I agree. And so Jolt is kind of like, it operates kind of like AoE, or I'm sorry, DOT damage. Damage over time?
That's the best way that I've been able to think about it. Is it's like Thorn, except you have to be applying damage through other sources. Like, it can be your own. So what my favorite way to do this is with Witherhoard, because Witherhoard just continually does stuff. So you jolt someone with a Volt Shot from the gun that you want the highest multiplier from, and then you use Witherhoard or just your normal DPS rocket, linear fusion, whatever you're using, and you'll just continually tick that big chunk of damage off of them that also takes debuffs and buffs on top of that. And so you want the highest multiplier to start building on top of, and then that multiplier also, which I didn't know this, thank you, Destiny Master Breakdown community, loops if you use your normal, like say you're running a Hunter, Arc Strider, and you use your skip nades that jolt. So you do your big Volt Shot with, say, Gunnora's axe. You get that huge multiplier, and then every time that 10-second jolt is about to run out, you throw a skip nade. It resets the timer on the enemy with the original multiplier.
Massive. Wow.
Yeah, so big PvE tips on Destiny Massive Breakdowns tonight.
Crazy.
Yeah, so
that's got to be one of the more interesting things, that I've heard in the last couple months with regards to just kind of just this niche, this niche damage stuff that operates in PvE in particular, because obviously the stuff in PvE goes way deeper than the mechanics in PvP, right?
Yeah.
Just because of the competitive nature of PvP. So super interesting.
Right now, currently too, just a heads up, the dungeon machine gun has Volt Shot on it, and that is currently the highest y'all can get from Volt Shot. That's the highest multiplier, is that machine gun. It's higher than a linear fusion rifle multiplier. So that machine gun from the dungeon has that. But I want to give a heads up too, because I talked to, I think it was Quarter or Impetus. I was talking with someone that the PvE, the other podcast we do here at Destiny Massive Breakdowns for the PvE side of the game, Podcast versus Enemies, they're just, sneak preview here. They're going to be going over all the abilities before Nightfall, I think, and how they all work, because they all have intricacies like this that just went completely over my head unless I really dove into it. And they're not really you have to look for very specific Reddit posts or be very involved with the Destiny Massive Breakdowns community to know how some of these things work. And so they're planning on going over, I think, all of these weapon elements and how they all work, or subclass elements, before Nightfall, because I think it'll be good to get that refresher.
Yeah, definitely.
Going into Nightfall. So be on the lookout for that. be sure to subscribe to Podcast versus Enemies, the other branch of Destiny Massive Breakdowns. It's going to be some legit stuff they go over.
100%. And just a small plug for the Destiny Massive Breakdowns Discord as well. These conversations happen like every day here, every day. Of course, like we advocate and hope that folks become like patrons where, folks can get access to the Patrons Lounge where these types of conversations definitely happen. But just the Massive Breakdowns Discord in general, I've learned so much just by being in here. I swear, just some absolute nerds, and I love it. I love it. So definitely join the Destiny Massive Breakdowns Discord community and jump in on some of these conversations. But at the very least, just I can get lost most definitely in just the rabbit hole of these discussions, whether it be PvE or PvP, because they just make it so interesting, and there's just so much to know about the mechanics that operate in the Destiny world. So come join us out here and come hang out. A lot of great people.
Yeah, and we actually had somebody join the patrons from our last episode who was like, Tony and Lego were hyping it up so much, and they said this was the statement that got them to join in, and so I want to reiterate it here, that it's a place where there are people who love the game and want to have fun with it and want to see it succeed. And that's the patron. That's all that you'll find there. So
100%.
If you want to come hang out with us, support the show, definitely check that out. Let's move on. Let's keep it rolling. This is the last thing we had for the Iron Banner stuff. So we're just diving straight into the ritual weapons here. And the first one up, and by ritual weapons, I just want to reiterate, that's the stuff that comes around, not the seasonal weapons that you can craft, but the stuff you'll find in the Gambit, Crucible, and Vanguard playlist, along with the number one ritual weapon that they have you go after that has a set perk pool that you earn by ranking up in those playlists, which in this case, this year is the Veles-X. But first, we'll go over actually, let's hit that one first. Why not?
Okay.
It's it's like the main ritual weapon we'll be going after, and I think it's an interesting gun. I had a lot of people hating on me in the various discords because of my dislike for it. I use it a bit more. It's okay. I don't want to harp on it too much, but I kind of got on the train because some other content creators, True Vanguard being one of them, came out and was like, hey, I'll save you all the trouble. You don't need to grind for this thing. It's terrible. And I won't go that far. But I am not a huge fan of the aggressive burst, 4-burst hitting pulse rifles, so really? I haven't had the best time with it. Yeah.
Interesting.
I like, even on Merc's new gun, the new exotic, I like the 2-burst mode that's very like fast and just tactile, and it just feels like it clicks on the head a little bit better. And the 4-burst, I'll get into why. I think this will clear some things up. Let me read from the stats real quick, and this might shed some light on why I feel the way that I do about it. So 4-burst aggressive pulse rifles, they are 450 RPM. They do 26 crit and 16 body. And that is at 10 resil. That means you have to get eight bullets to the head, 100% accuracy with those 2 bursts, or else you go down to a 1.07 TTK. So they're super unforgiving. There's no in between. It's 100% accuracy to the head, and I just can't ever, with the 4-burst, the way it spreads, line up all those headshots. Sure, it can happen. Sure, you can get melted by it. 0.73 seconds at a crazy range is, and then they hit hard too. They hit like they flinch you.
Yeah.
So they're good dueling weapons in that sense, but I just don't feel like I can ever get that 100% headshot accuracy. It's just not my play style to do the long range peeking play style. I like either I'm in there or I'm not. I'm not saying I'm running in the lane, but I just hate the passive. I'm hiding behind a barricade. I peek out and I do my 4-bursts, or I'm playing those long range. I like doing that at medium range, close range. I'll play that game, but it's just not as fun for me. And I feel like if I move out of that super long range, then I'm sacrificing my TTK because I'm not 100% accurate. I'm not going to hit 8 crits every time. That's just not. It's not realistic for me, I think, is where I come from.
I got a couple questions. So are you, I can't remember, are you on controller or are you on an M&K?
Yeah, controller.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. So my experience with aggressive frames, I actually like them. It's not as if I use pulse rifles a lot, but man, Sacred Providence back in the day used to just like hit so hard. And it was, I think it might have been one of the first pulse rifles that ended up having the previous version, the absolutely juice version of rapid hit. So it was actually quite easy. It was actually quite easy on M&K with rapid hit, the original version before it got slightly nerfed, to get that 2 burst pretty consistently, hit that 2 burst. So, I mean, obviously you still kind of wanted some solid stability to start off with on your stat bar, but that's, that was kind of my experience with it. I'm sure there's probably another aggressive frame that I enjoyed, but there wasn't one that I enjoyed more than that one. And I do agree that if you're going to rock an aggressive burst, just because you need those 8 headshots in order to get the optimal TTK, and it's so punishing if you don't, hit those 8 headshots on a substantially higher TTK, that you're going to want some sort of stability boosting perk on it, of which this one does not have. This one does not have on it, so that's probably a reason why folks aren't vibing with it as much.
I think that is the holdup for me, and maybe because I'm on controller, as you said, because there were people that are like, oh, you need to, even the people though that told me to give it a chance, they even were like, it's kind of a pain, but it has these great perks. I'm like, no, but I just can't. I can't give myself. But okay, let's get to the stats real quick before we dive into those perks. So we've got 73 range, 57 stability, 23 handling, reload speed 38, aim assist 41, recoil direction 64, mag size 38, in-air effectiveness of 19, and zoom of 18. So zoom is standard across there, but it does have middle of the road range stability with lower handling than the rest. And yeah, that lower handling and lower recoil direction, 64 compared to 70 and 78 of the other high impacts that are currently out there right now. I'm sorry, not high impacts, but aggressive. I think of these as high impacts. I know they're 4 burst aggressives.
Of course.
But yeah, so the stats are, and aim assist, lowest aim assist out of the bunch, 41 versus 48 and 44 for both Sacred Providence and Insidious from Val the Disciple. So it just doesn't feel great. It doesn't have the stats to help it feel great. You got that chamber compensator, but there's no arrowhead. Maybe that's what it is. There's no arrowhead break, which really bumps that would bump that nice recoil direction up to 94. And that would be solid, I feel like.
Yeah,
but there's just nothing to help you out here. So that's where I'm at with it, is it just doesn't feel good at base. Even if it does have really cool perks to help it out, it just doesn't feel great at the base. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. There are some... I was mainly interested in this for PvE too, not even PvP. I wanted it because it had Repulsor Brace Golden Tricorn, which you don't see very often together. Overshields, and then you're using your abilities to prog Golden Tricorn, so you're getting the overshields from Repulsor Brace, but you're also getting Golden Tricorn times 2, 50% extra damage. So
yep.
Really cool stuff. Even at base in PvP, that 50% extra, or not 50%, that 15 extra damage from just Golden Tricorn will take you to only 7 crits necessary for the 2 burst, which is very lenient, because then you could even, have a little bit less accuracy and get a body shot in there to kill a Tin Resil. So that's awesome. But it's not that much, it's still not enough to get me to use it. I got to get that first kill to operate it.
Exactly. Which is why, like on aggressive frames like this, I've always preferred consistency perks first and foremost, because you got to get that first. You got to get that first kill in order to proc anything else, and it's tough to get that optimal TTK on something that you need, perfect headshot ratio to 2 bursts to get that optimal TTK. I'll say this again, or I'll say this in addition as well. So on Sacred Providence, you mentioned it. You got the option for arrowhead break that you don't have on the Veles. You've got that increased aim assist at 48 versus 41. You've also got the slightly improved recoil direction just off of base at, 70 versus 64. On Insidious, you've got a whole range of other stuff that's helping that you don't have on the Veles that is important on this archetype. You've got rapid hit, of course, which again, you had rapid hit on Sacred Providence as well to improve that stability. Rapid hit is arguably the best on a pulse rifle, arguably the best on a pulse rifle. I could go into why, but hopefully folks can see where I'm kind of going with that.
Yeah, all that stability.
Yeah, and just, the preferential pulse rifles are kind of like in between forgiving, okay, you get some body shots, but it prefers headshots, for their optimal TTKs, so So maybe that's the reason why I kind of like them, is they're spitters, and I generally enjoy precision weapons like hand cannons. So maybe that's why I kind of like lean more towards pulse rifles versus, feeling more rewarded by like auto rifles. So
That makes
I don't
sense.
know. But either way, Insidious has really high base stability of like 60 versus I guess it's only 3 above the Veles or whatnot. But that recoil direction at 78 at base. 78 recoil direction at base versus the 64, and that's even above the 70 recoil direction for Sacred Providence. You feel that. Insidious feels like hella stable, even without a stability increasing perk or barrel or something like that, just at base. The ones that I've gotten, I haven't done Vow a bunch of times or like crafted in Insidious. Just the ones that I've gotten just to drop have felt like super stable. And I think it's the recoil direction first and foremost, and then just having great base stability. Not to say anything about the rapid hit that you end up getting on it as well. So. Yeah. Veles is kind of lacking those things, and you kind of need those things on aggressive burst pulse rifles that need perfect 8 for the 2 bursts and the optimal TTK.
I'm so with you on all the weapons you just listed, because they can all roll arrowhead break too. At base they're better, but also they can just have the options to make it more stable at recoil direction. And maybe if you could customize, maybe that's something they could change in the future. Because why? They're doing it for exotics now, where you can customize your exotics with the new pulse rifle, and they say they want to head that direction. Why can't we do that with ritual weapons? Like, yeah, give us some cool combo like Repulsor Brace, Golden Tricorn, but let us like actually deck it out the way we play, rather than just maybe that's too exotic. No, it can't be too exotic.
That's what I was kind of leaning into. That's what I was kind of leaning into, especially for the PvP side.
Yeah,
I'm sure that's probably what they're thinking is that, look, we could either go one of two directions. We could go the direction that you're talking about right now, or we could go the direction of just making exotics feel more exotic. And ensuring that they stand out above and beyond the legendaries. And folks have to, take some trade-offs by not equipping another exotic if we're going to give you crafted exotics next on top of that,
Yeah.
Like then yeah.
That's a good point. And I'll top this off, like the kind of finalize Veles-X by saying that it's still really cool to get Repulsor Brace, Golden Tricorn, Kill Clip if you use that too, Kill Clip Targeting Lock, or Tunnel Vision, sorry. Kill Clip Tunnel Vision, great synergy. Repulsor Brace, Golden Tricorn, great synergy. And what's really cool about Repulsor Brace and Golden Tricorn is now with the new Falcons, you get those volatile rounds, which will proc Repulsor Brace. And so you've just got this great synergy. Even in PvP, you can get that rolling. And then also with the volatile rounds in PvP, you do up to 200 damage. Say you're fighting a Titan and you hit all 8 crits. You do 200 damage to them, but yet they have an overshield and they don't die. Doesn't matter, because you just proc volatile rounds explosion that does, I think 80 something. I can't remember off the top of my head right now, but that'll finish them off, just the explosion alone. So, and you did all that without getting a kill. So that's a cool option now for hunters. At least there's some cool stuff that's come out. So it's worth looking into, especially, I think it's more for PvE. But, well, I say that. I was experimenting around one more thing I want to say on it, because it's one of the only weapons that has this season, is anti-barrier on pulse rifles. There's no, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's no Hake bow that has the Hake Breach Armaments mod on it. And so this gun has Hake Breach Armaments, and there's a pulse rifle anti-barrier mod you can run, and they stack. So
wow,
you can
I didn't know that. Okay.
A ton extra damage to barricades. You could already take it out in one burst. I was experimenting around with it because I was curious if the new exotic could take it out faster. But I think Veles-X takes reigning champ on this one, Barricade Destroyer. It's still not fast enough where I feel comfortable fighting with it in like trials or comp, but it does take care of some annoying stuff. If you need something to take down barricades, Veles-X can get the job done with Hake Breach Armaments plus the anti-barrier rounds. They kind of stack and do more damage together. So it takes some time, but worth checking out for sure if you're tired of barricades.
Yeah, which I think so many of us are. Okay,
well, let's jump onto something else I'm excited about for some very annoying reasons. Y'all are gonna hate me. So the Gambit sniper rifle, Albruna-D, is a aggressive frame, high damage, high recoil sniper rifle. I this is my favorite kind of sniper rifle. I don't know if it's just because of the damage stacking, but I just like dishing out a ton of damage. If I'm going to have 2 shots in something, I want those 2 shots to count. So even if I'm bodying someone, I want to clean them up as quickly as possible. So that's kind of how I treat my special weapons there. And so the aggressive sniper rifle, you're doing 474 to the head and 158 to the body. 158 to the body, that could be manipulated in some ways. So I think we might be getting into some of that. This sniper rifle, I want to say, too, the perk pool is ginormous. As
it usually is.
Yeah, Gambit stuff. But now we can, well, you can't focus stuff from this year for Gambit, but it will go into the rotation of things you can focus next year. So the current seasonal stuff cannot be focused at the vendors, but you'll be able to do it next time. So keep that in mind. If there's a role you like in here, you might be able to, if it doesn't drop for you while you're playing your Gambit stuff, you might be able to get it next year. But let's jump into the stats real quick. We've got 71 range, 28 stability, 26 handling, 31 reload, aim assist 41, mag size 3, inner effectiveness 3, lowest zoom 45, which 45, that's not terrible for one of these kind of sniper rifles. I know Revoker, you got that 30, which that's, changing. But we've got Bite of the Fox, I think, is the next lowest at 43. So
what's occluded finality? We call that the occluded Hubble telescope. That thing is crazy.
Yeah. So that one's 58. That one's ridiculous. But most of the ones I think people are used to seeing, like Succession, Frozen Orbit, those ones are 50. Yeah. And so 45. That's a pretty good. That's
pretty good.
Yeah, Macabre is 45 as well. Silicon Neuroma.
Okay.
Silicon Neuroma is 43 actually. That one's really nice. 43 for Silicon Neuroma, but really close to 45. So
of course, and Macabre is a pretty popular option right now. It's a pretty popular option. Like some would say, it's the best PvP legendary sniper. Some would say that. I'm not a sniper, so I'll defer to you guys. But
I love it personally as well. It's probably one of the easiest one shots snipers I've ever built. But I'm not down that road. I'm on a different road, which could take its place, I want to say. So let's get into these perks. This long list of perks. If you happen to land, I just want to say right off the bat that I'm. You could go with the typical perpetual motion snapshot. You got these options. You got elemental capacitor if you want to up your handling to insane degrees running an arc subclass. You got that option. In Gambit fashion, you can pretty much do anything here. You got moving target in the third column. You could stack that aim assist onto snapshot sights. If you're just going for a PvE roll, there's triple tap firing line, very popular combo. So you got all the standards here, but you've also got Golden Tricorn appearing for the first time ever on.
Here we go, y'all. Here we go.
Oh, here we go. Y'all aren't ready. Okay, for the first time ever, there's two big damage things here. One, you got Golden Tricorn, and 2, you got Harmony. So Golden Tricorn plus Radiant will hit you exactly 200 damage. And Golden Tricorn, remember, level 1 of Golden Tricorn is just get a kill. So you get a headshot, and then if you're Radiant or you threw a knife or you did a hunter dodge, for 7 seconds, you could body shot 200 damage. Now, I was telling Tony this beforehand because I struggled with this on the No Reprieve swashbuckler build I had, where it hits 200 damage, but Tinrazil Titans would live with just like non-existent amount of health. So just watch out for that. I'm not sure in practice if these decimals will turn out in your favor and you'll be able to kill every resilience. On paper it says yes, but I think the answer is probably no when this happens. Because if you're exactly the right amount, if there's no decimal, it's just 200, it will not kill Tinrazil. Just heads up. And so that one's, sketchy, but still cool, one hit kill. But what's more interesting to me is Harmony, which, as we talked about, there's a 3 seconds you have after getting a kill with your primary, whatever your other weapon is. You get a 3 seconds after your primary kill. You switch to this sniper rifle. You got 7 seconds of 20% extra damage, and don't forget 15 handling on top of that. So it kind of synergizes with a sniper rifle. So 20% extra damage, and if you stack that on top of Radiant, you're hitting for well over 200 damage, one-shotting anything. And even if you're not running Radiant, say you're just running the base sniper rifle, and you don't run Radiant or anything, you just run Harmony, you're one-shotting up to 5 Resil. Yeah, 190. So that's exactly 5 Resil. So it might end up being 4 Resil.
Or 5.
Yeah. But still, one-shotting, just all you did was get a primary kill. That's all you did. People do that all the time. This is easy stuff, y'all. Harmony is a great perk, and one-shotting for free like that. Because my thing I loved about Macabre is you got Swashbuckler on it, which is 4.5 seconds of a one-shot at any Resil when you're Radiant, that's good. But this is like you can play at a distance. You don't have to get close to anybody. You just use a scout rifle or a hand cannon. You get that pick. You say you're playing Trials. You get that pick. You do your dodge. You're one-shotting anything. Like, unless they have Overshield, Titan Overshield does exist. I gotta acknowledge that. But if it's just a player trying to push a lane or go for the res, and you just body shot them, like that's really strong. I think that could be really interesting, and I'm telling you, though, you're going to have to wade through several Gambit games to get this with this perk pool, because that is massive.
True. But, I mean, you said it. You said it. I mean, this is a massive perk pool, but there's so much potential here. For folks that want to, or that have a particular, either want to build a play style around it, or that have a play style. I mean, you're going to be able to find a perk combination here that ends up working best for you. For folks like myself that enjoys, really, really snappy gameplay on my sniper or otherwise, you've got the combination of both Surplus and Snapshot right here.
Yeah.
That means you're just lightning fast with everything. And keep in mind, the Surplus is best on long range weapons, because in close quarters, I'd prefer something like Threat Detector that just always consistently pops off with my handling and my stability, whatever else, but specifically my handling, so that I can whip that shotgun out as quickly as possible. Fairly consistently, it's going to whip out at that same, pace. And in close quarters, you're trying to use anything and everything you can to survive. So you're using your melee, using your grenade, et cetera, et cetera. That's why Surplus doesn't work as well on close quarter weapons like shotguns, and why Threat Detector does. But it's the exact opposite on a sniper rifle. Threat Detector obviously is just negligible. It doesn't do anything on a sniper rifle because you're so far off. You're usually not consistently in range of somebody that's going to be able to proc that Threat Detector to get those boosts. But Surplus is beautiful because you're so far off that you're not required to use your abilities. You'll have some abilities stored up to the point where Surplus is going to be whipping out fairly consistently. So the Surplus Snapshot is always one that is something that is going to pique my interest. But you've also got, you've also got your moving target, just like you said, that plus 10 aim assist. You've got specifically speaking for PvP, you've got your no distractions if you end up going that direction. You've got your elemental capacitor, which means you could go in a variety of different directions depending on what subclass you want to main. So therefore, you can kind of build into that however you want. You've got, again, your Surplus, you've got your Wellspring, if that's something that interests you with regards to renewing your abilities. This is always kind of nice in kind of a perk combination with Surplus, honestly, but it doesn't hurt, I suppose, in the same column. But I'm just saying, with Wellspring, you get a kill, then you end up refilling some of your abilities, which you'll build into Surplus once you fill one up. But nonetheless, certainly not bad to have here. And of course, your Perpetual Motion, which is a classic and a favorite these days as well. Just with that handling, stability, etc., increase that you get from moving around and just being a mobile sniper, right? So, and then in the second category, of course, you've got the opening shot, and then you end up pairing that with your Surplus, which I'm sure will be a favorite. You've got your snappiness from Surplus, and then you've got the increased accuracy from the opening shot. You've got your Eye of the Storm, which is, not horrible here, but if you're getting tagged as a sniper, you probably, shouldn't be necessarily trying to shoot through that, too often. But you do have the combination of no distractions in Eye of the Storm, which, you could definitely build, I suppose, a playstyle around that. You end up getting tagged frequently enough by putting yourself in those situations. You're not getting flinched as much because you got the no distractions. Then on top of that, you get tagged even once your Eye of the Storm is going to proc. You take that shot, it's going to be a fairly accurate shot, right? So you could, build into that, of course. As far as PvP, again, just sticking with that. Yeah, your Harmony, you're a Golden Tricorn.
That exists.
That exists. I don't want to, because I just know if you end up killing me with something like that, just go ahead and take a bow in the Crucible so that I know you got that information from this
Yes.
podcast.
Yes.
Just take a quick bow and I'll be like, oh, that person's not BMing me. They're just letting me know, Tony, it's your fault. You're the one that told me about this. Like, what am I supposed to do? What do I just not use this crazy information that you ended up providing for us? So
and tag me in that clip you upload on Twitter, please. Yes. And
definitely do that.
Breakdowns.
Definitely do that. Otherwise, the Cascade point is interesting, which I'll probably toss it back to you for. But, all the rest is kind of like obvious. And, those obvious PvE combinations, such as, the triple tap firing line, which you discussed. Mm-hmm. Definitely really interesting. But if you just want to finish us off with that Cascade point on sniper rifles.
Yeah. I think that Cascade point could be really cool here because, as you remember, we were talking about Cascade point at the beginning of the show about how you don't necessarily have to get final blows. It can be sustained precision hits with another weapon. So if you're in PvE and you grab one of these Cascade point rolls, you swap to, let's say you're doing boss damage and you have this thing packed. You swap to your linear fusion rifle, you're doing your boss damage. You get your 5 precision, however many precision hits with that. And especially if you got like auto loading or something on that thing and you swap back to this sniper rifle, you got Cascade point rolling and you got that extra firing speed for an aggressive sniper rifle that fires pretty slow, so that's 72 rounds per minute. You're firing much faster at, I feel like I can calculate this right now.
You should.
I think the 0.2, so it's not 0.7, it's 0.6 from this one. So you're doing 120 rounds per minute with this sniper rifle that's supposed to be 72 rounds per minute.
You're almost hitting the 140. You're almost hitting the rapid fire snipers. Like I've said this before, you could get off a very quick double body.
Yeah.
Which again, get the clip and tag me on Twitter because that would be really interesting. A very niche use of this thing, especially if you end up having the ammo for it as well. That's the only kind of limiting factor with that sort of thing with Cascade point on a sniper.
And I'm definitely thinking PvE for it, but it would be pretty cool to see it in PvP. Yeah. And one quick thing too, Ensemble. I think we talked a lot about the alternate version of that, but being with your teammates with Ensemble, I feel like could be, because you're a sniper rifle, getting that 30 handling, 40 reload speed, all you have to do is be in 15 meters of one teammate. Doesn't sound too bad, because I'm debating, because I really want to try the Golden Tricorn. Like, I'm serious about trying that Golden Tricorn or Harmony. I am. People out there might not know it, but I'm like, oh no, I want that. I'm gonna get that arm. And so I'm trying to figure out if I want not element capacity. It's either surplus, perpetual, or ensemble for me. And I feel like I'd lean toward. Well, I don't want perpetual because I'm switching to this if I get harmony. And so I feel like that makes surplus or ensemble be the ones, because perpetual, you got to build that up.
True.
So that's what I'm thinking, is either ensemble or surplus. Surplus would probably be the desired.
Surplus is so good.
Yeah.
It's so good. Yeah. Especially with how the uptime with our abilities are these days. Like we just always, especially on hunters, you just always have your dodge up. I mean, I guess on Titan as well, but with the way that abilities are and uptime is right now, surplus is even more powerful.
Yeah. Well, we'll close out here pretty fast here because we only have 3 weapons left and 2 of them are heavy weapons. So,
so how that's gonna go.
Yeah. So the first one here is a rocket launcher. Blowout for the Crucible is our ritual weapon this season, and there's nothing really to say. It's a rocket launcher. I will say that it is a adaptive frame rocket launcher, and that's all I'm really gonna say about it, because there's not in Crucible, they're just pretty much all the same. There's no perk combinations here that are really gonna help you hit that one shot, other than like maybe impulse amplifier, and it's got tracking module. So that's really all. You're probably just gonna want tracking module, and that's pretty much it. I can't think of any other thing you would want here, because none of these perks really apply to Crucible, unless you want Vorpal Weapon for some extra help taking out a super or something like that. And even then, you'd probably be better off using something else.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Yeah, there's nothing here that's like absolutely spectacular that is of note. So I mean, it's basically whatever you guys want on something that you may not even want.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay, let's move on to something worth talking about, and that's Hung Jury. I think it's our last one here. Super notable. Hung Jury's returning for Nightfalls, and it now has Adagio and Gut Shot straight on it. And I was talking with Tony about this beforehand because I was like curious. I was like, is Adagio worth running on this thing? Was my main question, looking at all these perks and it being updated with everything, because all the stats are everything you know from before about it. So it's a precision frame scout rifle, which for those that don't know, precision frames, I gotta take off my Adagio modifier here, is 180 RPM, 61 to the head, 38 to the body, with a 1 second optimal time to kill. So not great at base with that 1 second. And so, and this scout rifle in particular, if we look up its exact stats, it lands at 49 range, which is all these stats I feel like line up pretty much with their others. It's 49 range, 55 stability, 50 handling, 46 reload speed, aim assist is 67, mag size 16, in-air effectiveness 22. That is the one standout. In-air effectiveness is pretty high at 22, and then zoom at 22, which also stands out quite a bit there. So I take it back. There are two perks that I'm glad I read them. Two stats that stand out pretty far and above the rest, and that's zoom at 22, because the highest the other precisions get is 20.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah, that's just for reference. That's pretty good. If you like if you're using this close quarter, maybe you don't want that zoom. So that's something to consider there. And everybody who's using Hung Jury, who's interested in this, probably has an older version of this. So that's why I wasn't going to read the stats, but glad I did just for a little refresher for ourselves there. And then as far as the new perks, just having that Adagio Gutshot Straight, I'll just jump in with my thoughts real quick there, because Adagio will take it. It'll basically make it the next up archetype, slower rate of fire, that 150 high impacts, but it does it in a better way. So you're getting that 100, I think it's 153 RPM, basically 150, but you're getting a 0.78 second TTK with only 2 crits and 1 body instead of 3 crits you would need for the normal high impact. So it's much more forgiving, which could really interest some people. But also, Adagio is just a weird perk that you're not, you get that kill and you have to slow down your rate of fire. Can you adjust to that new rate of fire correctly? Now that we have the full auto perk on pretty much anything we want, maybe you can. Maybe it just automatically does it for you. But it's just something interesting to consider there with Adagio. And with Gutshot Straight, I'm pretty sure I looked at this and it's not worth even mentioning. So I'll just leave it at that for Adagio. Tony, does anything really stand out here for you?
No, I'm right there with you. I love my rapid hit on these things. Adagio I actually kind of like on scout rifles. I don't feel like it's particularly difficult to adjust to it, and I'm so far off. I mentioned this before when we were talking about this before we started, was I'm so far off that it's not dire that I have to adjust to this in a very specific time frame. It just, to me, it feels like, oh, okay, I get some extra damage. Yeah. I'm not also like a scout rifle main as well, so I'm doing very basic things with the scout rifle whenever I do have it on. So it could play differently for folks that scout rifle a little more aggressively, and play angles differently than the most basic scout rifle angles that someone like me would take. But yeah, I actually like Adagio. An extra damage boost, and just being rewarded for getting that first kill and staying out and in the fight. But otherwise, very basic. Not much has changed with the Hung Jury. It's still a very consistent shooter as far as a scout rifle. You've mentioned that it is definitely an outlier with regards to zoom in particular, which is nice. It definitely feels like it connects shots well, which is something I don't always feel like with Omalon scout rifles in particular. And I haven't looked crazy deeply into like, for example, the zoom on some of the other Omalon scout rifles that I've put on. There's a specific Omalon scout rifle, and I don't remember the name of it, but I have a god roll of it. It's like rapid hit, like kill clip or something like that, and it just feels like it doesn't even land shots. And so sometimes that's how I feel about Omalon weapons in general, because they have this weird either low base range or low base stability type thing going on with them that's kind of intrinsic to the actual like foundry.
Gotcha.
But yeah, Hung Jury feels really, really good, and I can understand why it's one of the more beloved scout rifles. This has a great perk package, and I'm glad to see it back, particularly with the Adagio on it.
I do want to point out something that I missed till just now, and it's hard to tell sometimes with some of these reprised weapons, but it does have a perk in the third column that it didn't have before that pairs really well with the returning box breathing in the fourth, and that's no distractions. So no distractions paired with box breathing, those synergize really well together. Aiming down the weapon for a short time is going to increase your aim assist fall off distance with box breathing, and then no distractions is going to give you reduced flinch. So the two of those working together going to do some great stuff for your weapons. So something to keep in mind there, because I think those two will go together really well. None of the other ones, we had a good laugh at offhand strike earlier, and we can do it again here, because who's going to use offhand strike? And
I don't think anybody's going to come back with hate on that one, to be honest. Offhand strike is just kind of a woo. I mean, I guess we mentioned it. It could be kind of hot on a shotgun. It could be kind of hot on a shotgun, but I can't really think of too many other things in PvP that you'd be going out looking for offhand strike. And even on a shotgun, there's oftentimes perks in those columns that are going to be more beneficial than something like offhand strike. But we'll just keep it for the memes for now.
Yeah, speaking of memes, we got a grenade launcher. No, I'm just kidding. Grenade launchers are pretty useful in the Crucible. I shouldn't harp on them. The heavy grenade launcher returning Wendigo GL3 as a Nightfall drop. And it's pretty interesting because last time we saw this weapon, it only had a set fixed perks on it, and now we got a whole fleet of them and some pretty interesting stuff too. So Wendigo is an adaptive frame heavy grenade launcher. I'm not going to get into the stats on how quickly they can kill because they're grenade launchers, so they will just kill you. But I will talk about the stats of this particular gun as far as range and everything compared to the others. We'll have a velocity of 29, stability 38, handling 41, reload speed 46, aim assist 66, which is the highest of the bunch. It's the highest of any grenade launcher outside of exotics, actually.
That's interesting. That's
definitely
interesting.
worth noting there. Mag size is 6 and inner effectiveness of 16, also the highest of any thing out there. But in grenade launchers, you're pretty much shooting a straight shot, but still interesting to note. So and we got this whole new fleet of perks to work with. And I think the main one that's going to stand out to me here is, I think it's going to be Golden Tricorn still, which I know y'all are probably sick of hearing me talk about it, but I thought it was really interesting to have a grenade launcher that had a rampage style perk that you don't have to reload for. It's really important for heavy because in the Crucible, you can't reload. So either you get that damage perk or you don't, which basically leaves you with either Harmony, Rampage, or Golden Tricorn. And so to get the better version of Rampage, Golden Tricorn here, with its 7-second, 15% increased damage, you can be sure that next target you hit after the first kill is going to go down. So I like that option a lot. Pretty much everything else is just, hey, that's great. And this one is like, maybe Impulse Amplifier sticks out as well due to the faster projectile velocity. But those two really just Impulse Amplifier, Golden Tricorn. I'm going to be going for one of those roles potentially this season.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm excited to see grenade launchers come back into the mix for PvP. Right now, they're kind of like an honest build type of. I mean, somebody that maybe wants to, relive the glory days of year one Destiny 2 PvP, if that's what you want to call them. And so this does look like, on paper at least, it looks like the best legendary grenade launcher to equip for PvP. So I could see those holdouts that continue to use a grenade launcher in PvP, of which there are quite a few. I know quite a few. Definitely trying to pick up a good roll of this and put some kills on it. It's definitely interesting to see the Golden Tricorn, of course. The Cascade point for the memes, of course, is kind of interesting, but it's not as if that's the type of perk that you would just spam all of them on like one or maybe two targets, like a bunch of targets for the clip. So that's interesting to see. But obviously, Golden Tricorn, I feel like is kind of the standout on this one. And you've got your full court as well, increased detonation damage as the projectile travels further before exploding. But again, PvP, it's not as if you're really taking that into account as much as much more consistently procced and much more consistently anticipated like Golden Tricorn type of perk. Otherwise, Impulse Amplifier. Chain Reaction is interesting to have there as well for opponents that are standing too close to each other to get that additional AoE damage. Otherwise, Otherwise, that's about it. It's not as if the other perks aren't, impactful, but not in ways that I would say, I would be looking for them over the remainder of what's there. And as far as, the other perks, they're GL perks as far as like the column, the first column, and, the mag perks and things like that. I think we all are we all are familiar to the point where we would be going for maybe like a proximity or a spike grenade. I'll leave that to you guys. But yeah. Interesting, definitely, to see the Wendigo back, and I definitely want to pick one of these up if I can to maybe go back to my year one roots a little bit.
And it's cool too because you can pick one up for PvE while you're at it. Like I want the golden tricorn roll to try for PvP, and if I don't, and I end up with a Cascade roll with like clown cartridge or field prep, auto loading, anything like that for PvE, it could be fun to try out to have something that I can do precision damage with on a boss, and then or even an enemy get a kill or anything, proc Cascade point, swap to it, have a ton of extra ammo with clown cartridge or field prep, and then just go to town. There are some seasons where grenade launchers are hot. This one is semi there. It's not, there's a lot of really good heavy weapons, but we've got that breach and clear style seasonal mod that weakens enemies from grenade launchers. So this is, it could be an interesting option this season. So
most definitely. And just like you said, GLs and PvE go in and out of fashion, so, and we did just get that small like GL buff to legendary GLs most frequently that allowed them to come back a little bit into the meta, but obviously not the top of the food chain right now. So it's interesting to see it come back, and I'm happy to see it come back, and happy to see it come back with random rolls.
Yeah, well, and I'm happy to be back this episode with you, Tony. Thank you for joining me again. This has been fun. The second episode doing all this. Thank you everyone for listening. It's been fun breaking down all these weapons. I know we've gone through kind of two iterations, having the last two episodes, one where we kind of generally approach things and one where we dove into the weapons. I'd be curious to hear y'all's feedback, as I know we're filling really big shoes here and trying to accommodate previous systems, but also creating our own voice here. So would love that feedback, both in the Destiny Massive Breakdowns Discord and also just on Twitter. It's been cool hearing from all of y'all. So thank you everyone, for real.
Yeah, definitely. And also just thank you for giving us the leeway. I mean, I'm definitely like the type of Crucible player where I learn and I see like patterns inside the Crucible, but I've never been the nitty gritty numbers person. And so I'm trying to kind of like get acclimated to that and try to learn a little bit more, try to listen a little bit more to the Destiny Massive Breakdowns community and see what you guys need from me. And I know Lego is trying to, accommodate as well, but Lego is much better with the numbers and he handles a lot of that. I leave a little bit to him for sure on that. But thank you as well, as we kind of like step in, just like he said, step into these shoes and try to do our best because you guys had some fantastic hosts before in the Mercs and the Kutches, and we just feel really privileged to be here learning alongside you guys as well.
Absolutely. Well, that brings us to a close of another show. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more Destiny Master Breakdowns, and be sure to reach out on social media, as I said, on Twitter, in the Discord, everywhere, with feedback, questions, or just to let us know what you enjoyed about the episode.
Yep. And just remember that you can connect to all things Destiny Massive Breakdowns at destinymassivebreakdowns.com, including Podcast versus Enemies, hosted by Court, Impetus, and St. Caber, and Beneath Twin Suns, a Star Wars podcast hosted by our very own Kutch and Merc. You'll find our social links and invite to join the conversation in Discord, episodes new and old, the occasional guest post, guide post, and more written resources right there.
This has been Lego, aka Legole Flash. You can find me on Twitter and YouTube. Thank you so much.
And this is, of course, Ill Physics. If you do not previously know me, aka Tony, I'm just going to keep on saying it different types of ways. But of course, you can find me on Ill Physics on most platforms, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch being the main ones. And come check me out, of course. But it's always a pleasure to be here. And till next time.
Peace.
Peace.